invocation or thought and the leading of the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Dalpez.
All right, I will offer an invocation tonight. Our Heavenly Father, we are grateful to gather as a community. We're grateful to gather also as a council here in North Ogden City. We are grateful for the ability we have to serve, and we ask that tonight we can have a good spirit about us that helps us make decisions that are in the best interest of the citizens, and that we'll be able to study out all the facts and come to good conclusions. We're so grateful for all that we have and all we enjoy, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
to the republic which stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Dalpez. Tonight for our consent agenda, number one, conflict of interest disclosures. Looking over the agenda, does anyone have any conflict of interest that you need to disclose? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Number two, discussion and or action to approve January 13th, 2026 City Council meeting minutes. They've been distributed electronically. I'd be looking for a motion to approve or if there's any corrections that need to be made.
I move that we approve the January 13th, 2026 City Council meeting minutes.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Dalpez, second by Councilmember Pulver. Is there any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, that passes unanimously. Item number three, discussion and or action to approve a council member to serve on the North Ogden City Audit Committee. So the last couple of years, I was serving as the audit chair, and then we had council member Severing on the committee. So we need to find two, not just one replacement, we need two, don't we, Ryan? So we'll need a chair and a council member. So I'm going to nominate that Councilmember Pulver serves as our audit committee chair, as I spoke with you about earlier. Second, I don't have a nomination, but if there's any council member that would like to serve on the audit committee, we meet once a quarter, and it's usually for about an hour. There's three community members that are on the committee, two council members. Ryan's on the committee, and John's usually there as well with Peter. Is that about it? So do we have anybody that'd like to volunteer themselves? Looks like Steve, JD, you're going to fight it out?
I'm not going to volunteer myself. I think it would be a good idea to nominate Steve Neighbor as a member of that committee with his CPA and financial background.
Okay. So I have a nomination of
Second.
Councilmember Pulver for the audit committee chair and then Councilmember Neighbor as the other committee member.
If he accepts.
Can you amend your motion to
With my
put,
background, I would probably feel comfortable serving on that committee.
would you like to amend your motion to include Councilmember Pulver as the audit committee chair?
Oh, yes. So I move that we approve Councilman Chris Pulver as the chair of the audit committee, and also that we approve Steve Neighbor as the council member that is on that committee.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilmember Dalpez, a second by Councilmember Watson. Any additional discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, that one passes unanimously. And Ryan will get with you on when those meetings are and what's all included. Okay, next, discussion and or action to approve the council member 4-pillar assignments. And I met with staff today and we went over these assignments. If you have any discussion, feel free and chime in. For the public safety liaison pillar, I'd like to nominate Council Member Carney. For the community liaison, I'm gonna kind of, instead of doing one council member, we're gonna nominate Council Member Pulver and Council Member Dalpez. So we'll have two council members serving here. The employee liaison will be myself. The council member to serve as the economic development liaison will be Council Member Watson. And then our finance liaison will be Council Member Neighbor. You guys got all those? Okay, do we have any discussion or thoughts? Would anyone like to change positions? All right, then I'll be looking for a motion to approve these assignments as presented.
So moved.
Okay, we have a
Second.
motion by Councilmember Watson, second by Councilmember Pulver. Any other discussion? All right, and then all in favor say aye.
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 Okay, that motion passes. So we have department heads that are over each of these pillars, so they'll be reaching out and scheduling times to meet with you all. All right, now we're moving into the active agenda, which I'm guessing why everybody's here tonight. Item number 5 is public comments. And we just want to preface the public comments. Feel free to come up and make any comment you would like to tonight. Just remember that we, as council members, we've all been watching what's been happening in Planning Commission the last couple months. We understand why you're all here. We understand your concerns. We've read all your emails. We do understand. So it's, as a community, if you want to come up and make your comments, feel free. If you would like to appoint 1 or 2 people to come up and make comments best, that's okay too. But we are not making any decisions tonight. The item being presented is just a presentation, so there will be no decisions being made. So feel free to come up to the microphone. We have about 5 minutes per person. State your name, whether you're a resident in North Ogden, and let us know how you feel. And again, we are looking for, if you have new information you'd like to share, but so now's the time to come on up.
Ogden resident. I'm probably not here for the reason everybody else is here. Item number 7, the Hidden Hills subdivision. Is that a different subdivision asking for culinary water for irrigation purposes than the one that's been previously discussed?
Yes.
Okay, so that quickly, we've got the floodgates opening with developments asking for culinary water, our most precious and limited resource here in our community, to be used as irrigation water. When there is, although difficult, understood, there is the availability of proper secondary water to be used. I hope you walk very, very carefully and heavily lean towards denying the application or the request to be using because here it is, in a month's time, this is now the 2nd developer that's asking to use our culinary water for irrigation purposes, be it temporary. You can just see it. We go a year and then conditions don't change. The water shares aren't available. We can't get water above the canal because the shares are below the canal. Whatever the excuse is, then we need another year. Then we need another year. And the next thing you know, it's 10 years down the road and we've got these developments using, again, our most limited resource that we have here in North Ogden, our water, our culinary water. We're asking 22,000 residents to sacrifice potentially culinary water so that somebody can water their yard. I'm opposed to it, and I think most reasonable residents are. Thank you.
Oh, I'm John Telly from North Ogden. I'm here to comment about the Atkinson Pauling annexation and zoning. And I understand you've been watching Planning Commission. I'd like to offer a little personal and hopefully represent some of the others as well. I live at the southern access point to this property on 925 East, 1900 North. And I would say, I watch the traffic in the morning there, and I'd say about 5 cars leave for work in the morning and 5 cars return at night. The Atkinson Pauling proposal proposes 68 homes in this with 2 access points into neighborhoods. There's no close access to even the access on 925 takes you more than a quarter of a mile to get to 1700, and 1700 is still a 30 mile per hour street. So there's a very serious concern with this property in terms of access and traffic. This property is all 2-story. There's been no guarantee on the maximum height. The property The developers offered a plan, and they didn't have to, I suppose, but they did, and they said there'll be a minimum height of 30 feet. We don't need to know about the minimum heights. We need to know what the maximum heights are. One of the outstanding features of Quail Ponds is a PUD. And the two features which made it sort of compatible with the surrounding neighborhoods, which were all lower density, was the 27-foot max heights and normal streets. With the 30-foot minimum, I don't know what their max height is, but two-story homes that could be 10 feet apart. In the surrounding neighborhoods of R18 and R110, it's going to look very different from our neighborhood. We're not asking for no development. We just would like the development to blend with our neighborhood. When we moved here, we had a choice. We looked at the neighborhoods, we liked them. If you zone that R14 or R15 with exceptions, we have no choice but to leave, because that could change the whole character of our neighborhood. So we'd like to keep our neighborhoods. If you look at our neighborhoods, they're 70% one story, with maybe 30% two-story. This development is all two-story. Our neighborhoods, again, are 10,000 square foot lots, 8,000 square foot lots. This development is proposing 5,000 square foot lots. Child safety, again, that 2 access points. The children these days ride scooters. They need bike paths. This development has no amenities. Normally a PUD, if I'm understanding the city website correctly, there's some overriding reason for the high density. A need for a building, a need for a church building, and there's some benefit given back, like a park or a trail system. Quail Ponds didn't offer any of that, didn't need any of that. And this development has no amenities, no parks, no trail system. It's relying totally on the surrounding park system. And I believe the closest park for these kids is down by Green Acres. And if they're in session, they got to go beyond Green Acres to get to a park. So I'm proposing R110. No more than 30% two-story houses. A standard city street. This development wants narrow streets, sidewalk on only one side. That's another of the redeeming features of Quail Ponds. They ended up with standard streets. Luckily, Thank you very much.
Real quick, just you can keep coming up. So in our council meeting with some rules of decorum, we ask that you don't clap in between. Just, we all understand, just it's trying to keep it civil. Thank you.
I'd also like to address the Pauline Atkinson property.
Can you leave us your name?
Oh, I'm sorry, Brent Call, North Ogden resident. To begin with, this has already been before the Planning Commission. And obviously you guys are very aware of what's taken place there, what the recommendations were. So I'm a little surprised that the developer is now bringing it to the council. I know they have the right to do that, and the council has the right to override or decide something different than what the Planning Commission has. The property should be annexed. I agree with that. I voiced my opinion at the council or at the Planning Commission that I think R10 is a better recommendation. The Planning Commission recommended R18. And for the city council to now think about doing something different, I think would be very, I want to use the right language here. I don't want to I want to say disrespectful, but not taking into account what the Planning Commission has already addressed and the citizens have already expressed. So like I say, frankly, I'm a little surprised to see the developer here to talk to the council about presenting almost identical what he presented to the Planning Commission. Now let me address a couple of things that maybe some other people won't address. One is the challenges with the property. My guess is the developer is going to bring up some arguments about that this is a difficult piece of property to develop because of its size, the limitations on access to it, the limits with Fruitland Drive, and all of those things. And yes, I agree with that. I sympathize with the developer and the property owner, but I understand that they had opportunity when the developments to the north and to the south were being developed to include that. And that would have made the property probably much more valuable in terms of development than it is now. Excuse me. And it shouldn't fall on the city or the citizens of North Ogden to try and mitigate those challenges that the property owner and the developer now have. It should be no less than an R18. And again, my opinion is it ought to be an R110. Another thing is this concept of affordable housing. I hear this brought up a lot, and my guess is the developer is going to try and address that as well, that we need affordable housing. And yes, we do. But affordable housing needs to be considered not just within the city, but as an entire state and particularly a county. And I think the general plan also addresses this, that when we talk about affordable housing, we need to look at the entire, essentially the county as a whole. North Ogden is a bedroom community to Greater Ogden City, and affordable housing needs to be considered throughout that entire area. The average price of a home in Weber County is lower than most of Utah. So we already have fairly affordable housing within the area. And I know that the governor is putting a lot of pressure on cities and on communities to try and accommodate this. But this problem was created by the governor, Governor Herbert and Governor Cox, with their economic development, and they've done a great job. Utah has boomed, and we're all happy about that, unless you're trying to buy a new home. And this is a problem that will eventually work itself out, and the government should not be trying to mandate those kinds of things. I'm looking forward to the day when some city is willing to challenge the governor on that. I disagree with his pressure to try and drive this affordable housing thing. It's not going to fix it. I've read a number of articles and analyses of the affordable housing issue. And by trying to zone this into communities like North Ogden is never going to fix the problem. And it shouldn't fall on communities like North Ogden to try and fix it. We have, along the Washington corridor, provided a lot of opportunity for those lower income or lower affordable type housings. And so trying to drive this kind of a development into a neighborhood like the Atkinson property is just not right and shouldn't be happening. Anyway, I urge the council to annex the property, get it into the city, but it should be zoned no less than R18. And again, I would encourage R110. Thank you.
Do we have anyone online, John? Just, oh, you can come on up, just.
My name is Brian Bartholomew, 40-year resident here of North Ogden. I want to congratulate Steve. Looking forward to working with you again. I'm coming to you as a citizen of North Ogden because I'm also on the the Mountain View Irrigation Water Board, and we discuss water obviously every month when we get together. And I was unaware of this current subdivision you guys are talking about. I want to bring up the Jordan Park subdivision next to me now. Just so you know, I have one of those lots under contract to buy, so I am growing my roots deeper to North Ogden. Okay. Now, the last conversation I had with that developer was he wanted me to write a letter that he could bring to you guys saying that we would not give him water and that he wanted to use culinary water to irrigate his yards as well. Now, this has already been brought up. I've already addressed you guys. And we've had a number of meetings with Barry about that. And I said to Barry, I said, this is not my problem. So first of all, no, I won't write that letter. But this is not my problem. This is your problem. You bought this land. You did not have the secondary water needed. This is your issue to resolve. There are solutions out there for secondary water, but using culinary water as a secondary water solution is not a good idea. I also conveniently get to be one of the guys that goes out to shut off some of our secondary water users when they overuse water. And that's a little bit of an uncomfortable position when you're blocking someone's water. I do not believe that if the city allows culinary water to be used for secondary purposes, I don't believe the cities are allowed to shut water off. And I had this conversation, I believe, with Mr. Hess, that it becomes an enforcement issue. And if the culinary water is being overused, how are you going to shut that water off? And like Phil said, water is one of our most precious resources. And this year, I'm sure we're going to be in a shortage. And how are we going to address that on the secondary side, which is not as crucial as the culinary side? So again, I'm coming in as a North Ogden resident saying, after Barry Gittleman pulls out of Jordan Meadows or Jordan Park and everything's developed, if we then have to deal with culinary water use in his subdivision and the overuse there, it's a problem for us, and he's over and gone. And the same thing could be said with this other subdivision that I honestly know nothing about. So I'm strictly addressing Jordan Park. But my point is simply, let's not go down the path of using culinary water for secondary purposes. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mindy Albee from North Ogden. Please follow along by looking at the pictures that I have sent. It'll be on the screen. That'll be the most helpful for you to understand what I'm talking about. Sorry, I'm gonna turn on my timer. Oh, golly. Okay. I want to talk about the lots that can fit on the Atkinson parcel. If we look at some history, we can better understand the lot layouts of this parcel better. But because city standards for street rights of way are so important, we need to first take a quick look at them. Street right of way, this is a picture of a cul-de-sac. The street right of way is required to be 60 feet. Cul-de-sac right of way is required to be 110 feet in diameter. That's what you see in the surrounding neighborhoods of this parcel. You can see that the street right of way is wider than the actual street, and so is the right of way for the cul-de-sac. The extra right of way is for sidewalks and utilities and so on. The homeowner can plant grass or whatever isn't used for that. That extra land doesn't count towards part of the required lot size. Next picture, please. The Atkinson parcel is shown here in white. Nobody was ready to build on it a decade or more ago. The land was still just agricultural land in the county, but the owners of the big parcels around it were making irreversible decisions about the future development. The land in this area was intentionally being assembled and chopped into pieces to set them up for future development that would eventually come. The developers of Fernwood Estates and Ward Farms invited the Atkinson parcel to join them. The owners, Pauling and Atkinson, who still own the property today, refused to sell at that point. The design of Fernwood Estates to the north and Ward Farms to the south tells you exactly what the development plan had to be for this parcel. The plan was obvious, or there wouldn't have been these street stubs coming down from Fernwood Estates and up from Ward Farms. Everybody at that time, and continuing forward to this day, knew and relied on the Atkinson Pauling parcel being developed like this. Next picture, please. Or maybe they were thinking something like this. Next picture. Or maybe they were thinking something like this. Next picture. Or maybe they were thinking something like this. Next picture. Or maybe they were thinking something like this. Next picture. Or maybe they were thinking something like this. Next picture. Or maybe they were thinking something like this. Next picture. Or maybe they were thinking something like this. Next picture. Or maybe they were thinking something like this. Next picture. Or maybe they were thinking something like this. Next picture. Or maybe they were thinking something like this. Next picture. Or maybe they were thinking something like this. Next picture. Or maybe they were thinking something like this. Next picture. Or maybe they were thinking something like this. Next picture. Or maybe they were thinking something like this. Next picture. Or maybe they were thinking something like this. Next picture. Or maybe they were thinking something like this. Next picture. Or maybe they were thinking Here's another take on it. Next picture. The Atkinson Pauling owners locked themselves into this parcel configuration and this street pattern when they stubbornly refused to join the other projects going forward at that time. And now there are and now here are the lot configurations that they voluntarily locked themselves into. Next picture, please. So this is what they locked themselves into by not selling when all the other parcels were being sold. This is about 15 lots. Maybe this allowed a later developer trying to increase his profits to shrink the lots and do something like this. Next picture. It's much smaller lots, so he gets about 25 lots, which are very compatible with both Fernwood Estates to the north and Ward Farms to the south. Again, the standard street right-of-way is 60 feet. The standard cul-de-sac diameter is 110 feet. That's what you can see in the surrounding neighborhoods. So years pass until carpetbagger Albion Development, who has no connection to our community, swoops into North Ogden and proposes this completely incompatible and stack 'em high development plan. Next slide. But that's going to require streets. So here are his streets that satisfy the city rules. Next slide. The purple lines show what his street circulation should look like with a standard width street that meets North Ogden city requirements. But now he's got a problem. His lot sizes are an incredible 3,000 square feet or something like that. So he does this yellow thing instead. Next picture. The narrow streets are a direct consequence of the developer's wish to cram way more lots on this parcel than it can accommodate. Other people tonight have and will say more about these unsafe, narrow streets, but I can't repeat it all here. The developer acts like this is somehow his only option, that he can't develop this parcel without making the city accept his narrow alleys that pretend to be streets. But the developer does have lots of options if he insists on cramming more lots onto the parcel. Every one of the options that I will now show you here fully meet all city requirements for streets. They are, next picture. This street pattern satisfies city requirements. Next picture. So does this one. And this one would work. Next picture. Utilizing what's already in our approved city code. Next picture. And this one would work. Next picture. This would work too. Next picture. So the developer does have lots of options. Every one of them is better than what he has proposed. Every one of them gives him more lots than anyone else got in this area. Every one of them satisfies all the city requirements. He can do any of them. This developer has made little effort, or no effort in my opinion, to work with the neighbors. Tell him not to come back to you for a vote until he backs off this false premise of absurdly narrow private streets, stops ignoring the neighbors, and engages the neighbors in good faith regarding the other faults in his proposal. The city council should turn this proposal down. Thank you.
My name is Paul Merrill. I live on 2100. My big complaint is a couple of weeks ago, I got flooded. That slight amount of rain we got. And several years ago, when we had quite a bit of rain, the church came down and sandbagged the front of my house so I wouldn't get flooded. The problem is on 6th Street, it crosses 2100. The drain going underneath 6th is too small. You have the water coming down 6th and you have the water coming down 2100. I hate to think what is going to happen if they develop these two properties without doing something on 2100 North. Now, There's about 8 or 10 houses on my side. I'm on the north side, and we all get flooded. They have an open ditch, and where my house is and the corner house is, I'm the second house in. They've got a pipe, but it overflows and goes up on the street and down. I would like to see, before you do any more development, to fix 2100 North. You need to do something. There's not curb and gutter on the north side of the street, and we get flooded. And it's just going to get worse and worse and worse if you keep developing these things and don't take care of that problem on 2100 North. Thank you.
Can I hand these to you? Okay. Good evening. My name is Ben Burney. My family and I reside here in North Ogden in Fernwood Estates with our property directly touching the Atkinson property. I would like to give my perspective as an active real estate agent in North Ogden who understands the need for housing for all levels of buyers. My comments on this proposed development are coming from a point of understanding the need to make money as a developer, the viewpoint as a direct neighbor to this plot of land, as well as a very concerned citizen of your city. Thank you for your eagerness to listen and understand all of our thoughts tonight. I know a lot of them are repetitive, but some of us didn't get a chance to speak our thoughts on the last one because just time got cut short. The question has been asked, will the size and character of homes and the style of community affect the value of the homes on the north and south side of this proposed development? Those homes have much larger lots and much different characteristics architecturally. Here is my take as someone who regularly takes home buyers through homes as they search for something in the $650,000 to $850,000 price point, which is what Ward Farms and Fernwood currently has. The comment was made in a planning commission meeting from the developer, Mr. Seeley, that these small lot, small footprint homes do not affect the value of those homes surrounding the proposed development, no matter the common features that are shared. This is a poor argument coming from a developer who has one task, that is to seek out empty plots of land and figure out how to make them attractive to their target audience. They're not licensed real estate agents or appraisers. They also don't have the experience of walking through homes with a buyer. Let me paint a quick scenario. Mr. and Mrs. Homebuyer decides to come up and look at a home in Fernwood or a Ward Farms. That's awesome. It's a great area. We show up to the home, lots of positive comments and good vibes are flowing. We move to the kitchen, look out the large windows that all of our homes have. They're excited to see the mountain view, and now what do they see? A wall of 2-story copy and paste houses standing 30 plus feet off the ground, sitting a mere 15 feet from the property line. It's a literal wall of houses that are 10 feet apart from each other. The view, it's gone. The privacy, it's gone. The buyer, it's gone as well. They move on to the next showing in this home. All of our current homes now have a red flag on them that they are now the homes that have a permanent neighborhood defect that can never be corrected. The next day, the listing agent asks for feedback. The feedback for the homeowner is nothing but positive. We get this a lot, but we know the problem. So what does the seller do? Well, they can paint their home to look more attractive. We can add new carpet to make it feel brand new. Will there be another buyer that comes along and buys our home? Absolutely. Probably 30, 60, 90 days. Totally. What happens during those months of being active on the market? You already know. The price reductions to get new buyers back in their house. Price reductions that would not have had happened if the homes behind them would have been planned for appropriately. This is the reality. Those who aren't living these scenarios day in and day out don't quite understand. The developers are looking at this from an appraisal perspective where they get to choose the comparable homes to create the value of a home. They're looking only at this from the perspective of comps on paper and not from standing with boots on the ground in each of our homes and seeing the impact this will have, which is the perceived value that will quickly affect the market value. I hope this dispels the myth that putting this community behind our homes won't affect our values, because this is absolutely false. I have included pictures on the first page of your handouts to show exactly what the landowners in Fernwood and Ward Farms will be seeing from our point of view. I know there's been pictures circulating that, show a nice generated home that's just one here, but when you actually see them all put up, it's just literally a wall of houses. You might as well give us townhouses behind our homes. Last thing here, the second page, if you could refer to those handouts. Each time I search and show homes in this type of development, the commonality I find is that there's a location, the location commonality. These communities are placed next to higher occupancy roads. A couple of examples include Vista at Summerwood by Woodside Homes in Clinton, located adjacent to 2000 West, a high-density north-south route. Another one is Westwood Estates by Meritage Homes in West Haven, located at the crossroads of 4000 South and Midland Drive, both major roadways. And finally, Stillwater by Woodside Homes in Syracuse, located with on-ramps to the new West Davis corridor. These are all very similar communities to what they want to put in this parcel. The Atkinson Pauling proposal has no direct access to main roads. The only two access points, as I forget his name, but as John mentioned, would be going through neighborhoods and then out through 1700 or 2100 to get to the major corridor, which is Washington. So obviously a huge increase in traffic, which we've already discussed. So my last comment on this would be, don't allow the development of this plot of land to hurt the established neighborhoods surrounding it. If this developer can't make money without higher density housing, then zone the property appropriately, such as R110, and allow a respectful developer come in and be more conforming to the neighborhood. There is a great demand for flat, quarter, and third acre lots close to the mountains. Not everyone wants to build up on the hillside where those lots are currently available. So create a plan that works. It is there. You just have to think outside the parameters of these profits. You have people that live here, that want to retire here, that bought here because the style of homes and the openness of the neighborhood. We love where we live. Don't change that by making the wrong decision and allow these small lots and taller homes. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Kevin Bott, and I've lived in North Ogden about 40 years. My concern with the whole situation is the infrastructure. We're already overtaxing what infrastructure we have right now. And I don't know about the other people, but I get tired of paying more taxes to build larger infrastructures for someone else, a developer that comes in, builds the property, and then he's gone, he's made his money, and we're stuck with what's left. My prior home was on 1900 North. When we first moved in 1986, some of the neighbors in the development just to the south of us had problems with water in their basement. The developer got us all together. We had a meeting, and the developer told us, if you're getting water in your basement, go take the cover off your drain and drill holes into the sewer system so that the water will go down in there, which is totally illegal. But that's what was told to us. When we purchased our house, it was the understanding there would not be any flooding whatsoever, because our first house got buried in a mudslide and we were totally liable for everything. So we didn't want that to happen again. So our house had a land drain all the way around underneath the footings and everything, and we had no water problems whatsoever for the 34 years we lived there. This last time we had a heavy rain, the people who purchased our house and the whole neighborhood had about a foot and a half of water in all those homes. And the only thing that has changed is the developments up to the east that weren't there when we lived there. So my concern is, like I say, the infrastructure. The developer gets his money, he's gone, and then the city's left with taking care of everything else. And the people that live here have to pay for everything that needs to be done that the developer should be liable for. If he's going to tax the sewer system and everything else, he should be liable to create a larger sewer system. I understand that the R18 homes, there would be about 30 homes or so, which I think that the system we have now could bear that. But when you're talking 60 plus homes, especially if they have small children, you know as well as I do, they turn the water on and let it run, and we're going to have a lot of wasted resources. So I would say that we do need to annex it, and R10 or R18 would be fine with, I think, everybody here. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kate Brabison, and I'm a North Ogden resident. I strongly urge you to carefully scrutinize every variance the builder is requesting. Granting any variance undermines the purpose of having zoning standards in the first place. If these variances are approved, it sends a clear message for future developers that North Ogden zoning designations are negotiable guidelines rather than enforceable rules. That precedent would not stop with this project. It would shape how every future development approaches our city. This raises an important question to the council. Are we comfortable allowing developers to redefine North Ogden's planning standards project by project rather than preserving a clear, consistent vision set by the community itself? Decisions made here tonight will not only affect this property, but will influence the long-term character of North Ogden as a whole. I echo and agree with a lot of what my neighbors have said. I was a recent home buyer and was deterred by homes that had a house just, 10, 15 feet off the potential home that I was looking at. To speak to the attainable housing, I went on Zillow last week and there are over 30 homes available at a 600,000 or less price point on Zillow. And so for our lot, I don't think it's going to move the needle for this development to provide attainable housing, especially adding on an HOA fee that would be uncapped. And also was a reason we chose to eliminate a lot of properties as that's going to be additional monthly or annual cost. Thank you.
My name's Dean Shepard, North Ogden resident. I want to address a couple of issues in regards to infrastructure and safety. Is it okay to ask you a question? Is there a continuous sidewalk that runs from Washington Boulevard to Fruitland Drive on 2100? Can you answer that question?
There's not.
No, there is not. In fact, if you want to walk on a sidewalk, you have to cross the street numerous times. And there's a couple places where there's not a sidewalk on either side of the street. That's a big safety concern. You're looking at doing development, Atkins property, you're looking at development, more development on 600 or 600 and 2100. Where's the infrastructure to support that growth? Is that being planned? Is there going to be a sidewalk? What about all these new parents with young children that want to walk their kids to the elementary school for school and they don't have a sidewalk to walk on? How are those kids going to get home after school if they don't have a sidewalk to walk on? Or if they choose to walk the street, they're crossing the street back and forth, and yet alone, we're adding hundreds of vehicle traffic per day that those kids have to watch out for, because we know a lot of drivers tend to not watch out for kids. And so safety is a huge concern. Now on the Atkinson property, You're looking at 68 homes with roads so narrow that they're not going to allow parking on both sides of the street. They're going to paint a red line on one side of the street and say, you can't park there. Well, who's going to enforce that? And you get vehicles parked on both sides. You don't even have room for hardly one vehicle to walk down, to drive down there. And you got kids running across the street. And those drivers can't see those kids because there's 20 feet for them to drive in between two vehicles, and those kids are playing in the street and in the row and in the front yards of homes that are so small, there's not much of a front yard. Some vehicles probably can't even park in the driveway without blocking the sidewalk because the distance from the sidewalk to the house is so small. If you got a large vehicle, you're going to be extended into the sidewalk. So the kids walking up and down the street, up and down the sidewalk, are going to have to walk around vehicles and be in the street. And so I want you to consider infrastructure and safety as you're making these decisions. Thank you.
My name's Hub Blanchett. I'm a resident of North Ogden. There's everybody seems to be, I asked the developer about that. Why don't you put an exit on going on to Fruitland Drive? Ward, he told me the slope was too steep and he couldn't do it. Anyway, so but Ward Farms is steep. And I don't know if you've seen the exit on where Ward Farm, but they widened Fruitland Drive. They put a sidewalk in there. The developer did that. And so it looks real good and it's safe to come out of that exit. So why not put an extra exit so everybody wouldn't have to go in the neighborhood, but why not put I know why they don't want to do it to Fruitland Drive, because it would, they'd have to develop the road, they'd have to widen the road, they'd have to put a sidewalk in like Ward Farms, but it would sure make that Fruitland Drive safer. And they don't want to do it because it costs them money, of course, so reduce their profit. But, and the other thing I'd like to point out is that I keep hearing about pressure from the state for affordable housing. And they're putting pressure on the cities and they're threatening to blackmail the cities and take their sales tax away. But as representatives of the citizens here, you guys have to push back instead of just taking that blackmail that they're throwing at us. And you guys got to push back. You're the only guys with some power to do that. And just for the citizens that are here.
Hi, my name is Tina Hufano, and I'm not very good at public speaking, so bear with me a minute. So my backyard is right at the farmer's field. So I agree with everything everybody said. So when I look out of great windows, I have a beautiful view, love to see the cows, which anyway. So I'm going to lose my view. I'm going to have, like you said, a wall of houses. So when you go out my backyard, it's a 4-foot drop to the farmer's field. So I don't know how that's going to work either. I don't know if he's going to have to build it up or, if he puts a fence, it's going to look weird because it's going to be like 4 feet and then 4 feet of fence or a house. So besides, of course, all the technical things, for us, it's going to be an eyesore. It's going to be, we're losing our view. The traffic is going to be horrendous. I am almost at the top. So right now we already get a little bit of traffic. I don't know about you, but I get a lot of Amazon. So you have Amazon trucks already coming in now. You put 68 houses besides all the traffic, people going in and out, getting your kids to school. You have Amazon trucks coming in and out all the time. So anyway, my biggest thing is the view, the traffic, the safety, and our house value going down. So I'm pretty much repeating what everybody says, but I just want to say that I am very concerned and hope that you do the R8 or the R10. Thank you.
Any additional comments? If not, we will close the public comments and move on to the item number 6, discussion on the zoning of the Atkinson Pauline annexation located at approximately 1950 North Fruitland Drive. And our presenters, Scott Hesser, Community and Economic Development Director.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So I just have a brief comments, and then we'll turn it over to the developer who's asked for this discussion tonight before Council. This item on the annexation is going to be on the second meeting of February, so that's in a few weeks from tonight. But Planning Commission has weighed in on this. So on November 19th, 2025, Planning Commission met, heard series of public comments. The actual public hearing process for the annexation will be with you formally in the city council chambers. But we heard heard comments, and the Planning Commission's recommendation was to annex the property and zone it residential R18. So the developer has made some minor amendments from the original 69 unit development to the 67 unit development, but it's currently, if you looked at the read ahead document, they've got their information that they'd like to present, and we gave you Planning Commission's recommendation and leave that with any discussion you'd like to have. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but otherwise would turn it over to Derek Terry, who represents the development group.
Any questions for Scott?
So I had the pleasure of being in the Planning Commission when this came forward. So in the minutes, I remember it was also suggested by Chair Dencaro that the developer be innovative in trying to accommodate the R18. So I think the Planning Commission was trying to be open-minded to the developer. I don't know if you recall that, Scott, but so just from my perspective, there was direction given beyond just the R18 to try to be accommodating, but yet trying to make this work for everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I'll just say, I don't have any questions right now.
Okay.
But I've been following along all of the meetings, watched everything, heard all the comments. So I feel like I have a very good idea as to what the situation has been.
Sure.
Any questions for Scott, or else we'll have Christina, Councilmember Watson.
Well, it's an impossible question. We've talked about this, and I've asked Director Hess this as well. But I wish you could just say it to the public for tonight that is there a way to define attainable housing by what the state suggests?
So I've asked this question several times to members of the Utah League of Cities and Towns, who's the city representatives up at the legislature and legislative session. And as far as I can tell, there really isn't. There's a number that's kind of been pulled out, which is $450,000 for a standalone single family home. I think that when you apply that, regionally, we have a really urban region from about Brigham City down to Santaquin, across multiple counties. It's difficult to just say one size fits all in that area. So every piece of property has its own unique characteristics. I don't know what attainable means.
Right. So let's just say that the state says we have to have so many attainable housing, and let's just say that that number happens to be 450, which I know it's a changing number by the minute for a number of factors and equations. But if that were the case, if a developer were to come in and say, I have attainable housing here, is there a percentage of that development that would need to be at that? My point is, can they have one that's at 450 and it counts as attainable housing development?
It's just really not clear. And the state, one thing with the modern income housing plan that we've been required to do for the last 15 years. And I've been asking the state this, and I've been asking other cities this, is give cities a target percentage. You know, what percentage of our city should be connected unit townhomes, apartments, small lot, single family, large lot, single family? What percentage should be affordable from whatever standpoint that is? And there's no defined number. There's a lot of pressure on housing. I think that there's a lot of top-down pressure from the state onto cities to solve an issue that interest rates, you know, when they were 3%, what was considered affordable and attainable is far different then in 2021 than it is today at 6%. I mean, the same exact house, same construction costs, same limitations on land costs, and we have no way to control interest rates, right? So one of the governor's goals, or one of the goals that we've seen, is zone for smaller lots, zone for connected units, zone for, you know, housing that could be more attainable than large lot single family housing. And this is one way to do it. So the developer has proposed it based on their request in an annexation, which they're able to do. Planning Commission weighed in, and the annexation process, as far as I understand, is you have culinary, stormwater, sewer, they all weigh in on whether or not we can provide infrastructure to the property. Planning Commission weighs in on what their land use is, and then the applicant, being, you know, they can do their own free thinking and what they want to do, brings forward a project. One thing to consider tonight is that in the discussion and what happens at the end of the annexation part is that you're not approving that subdivision. So you would be looking at a concept plan today. You're approving potentially whatever the zoning is on the ground, and then the developer would have to build a project that conforms with that zoning. There are methods within our Title 11 land use code that permit private streets. We have private streets all over the city, including Legacy North, just immediately behind City Hall. Those can be approved by Planning Commission based on recommendation of the city engineer. So that's something that it's legal, it's defensible, it happens across the city. But you're not approving one subdivision plan tonight. You'd be looking at, or you're not approving anything tonight, but it's what zoning.
Thank you. Sorry to put you on the spot. And then I just was wondering, I don't know if this is a now time or another time for tonight, but if someone, and maybe that's John or you, but if we could speak to what happens, what we've been told could happen from the state if we don't abide by the laws that we've been put under, what could potentially happen?
So right now, if the cities don't have a compliant moderate income housing plan, which we have continued to be compliant on that, then the state's carrot and stick approach is to pull what are called B and C road funds. And those are state funds that are redirected into our public works capital projects that pay for things like sidewalks and pothole filling and street overlays. And for North Ogden City, it's roughly $1 million in road funding. So what would be on the line for a city of our size is about $1 million if we aren't compliant in that state plan. And those are reviewed and approved by the DWS, so it's HUD, essentially at the state level. Department of Workforce Services certifies our plans, and it's coming up again. We have to do that by end of August.
And thank you. And I know John has talked about before that if a certain city, let's just say, decides to be defiant against the laws and the requests and the rules that are put upon them, then the state could come in and zone a city how they would like. I mean, that's a potential, even if it's, I don't know, talk on that.
It's been a threat. So we hear it as a threat, basically, and the legislative session just began. If you're interested, follow along on Mondays at the Legislative Policy Committee at ulct.org. That's probably the best place to get land use information on new bills coming out right now. And there is certainly a lot of pressure on housing generally in the state, and the local communities are feeling that pressure to solve the issue. And, you know, as a staff member who's been looking at these issues for years, we really have limited levers we can pull. You know, you can down zone to the smallest lot size that you can get, and at interest rates at 6% and difficulty of getting materials, you're still going to have a very expensive house. And they just aren't going to cost what they cost 5 years ago. So we're doing our best, I would say, and I think North Ogden has done an excellent job of doing a variety of housing types across the city. You know, right now, out of our nearly 7,000 residential units that we have approved about 1,800 units of townhomes and apartments that we're expecting to come up out of the ground. I've asked the question, is that percentage enough? You know, what percent of the city needs to be smaller lot or townhomes? And no one can seem to be able to give us that answer. So if someone can tell me too what attainable means and what percentage of the city needs to be attainable, I would love that, because I'll recommend that all day long to the council on what to do.
Thank you. Sorry to put you on the spot. I appreciate you going into that detail.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've got a question. So regarding R18 versus R110.
Yep.
If we went either way, is the houses staying the same size for moderate? So would it just make bigger yards? And what's the difference in homes going in there if it was
So
one or the other?
So it's lot size and then it's setbacks. So the difference between 8,000 square foot lots and 10,000 square foot lots is approximately 6 units an acre, or about 4.34 units per acre. So it's quarter acre or fifth of an acre. The setbacks really create a floor area ratio, meaning you've got a building box you can build within, and the house size, many people choose to maximize the amount of house that they can fit on there. So that's side setback, rear side setback, and front setbacks. And they'll build as big of a house with as big of a garage and an RV pad as they can. So we're not really seeing a whole lot of house size difference between a 10,000 and an 8,000 square foot lot. It just comes down to what those people choose. All of our single family residential zones and our multifamily are 35-foot height maximum zoning. The R15 has the 27-foot. Just anecdotally, we've heard from several developers that the 27 feet that causes kind of a story and a half. It's the old style of developing where you tuck a second story into the eave and roof. Makes homes more expensive. That standardized truss packages that you can purchase off the shelf for a home are less expensive than building attic trusses and custom roofs. So we have heard that the 27-foot limitation is actually causing more expenses on the construction and architectural side versus some of the home plans that are 30 feet where you get 2 8-foot stories and a roof pitch that will shed snow in a place like North Ogden. And again, that's a policy decision for the council. So that's neither good, bad, or indifferent. It's just information that we're hearing from the development community.
So right now they've got 68 lots on there. If it were zoned, say R18, how many lots would there be versus R110?
So I've done some math, and you've got 11.81 acres, and there's a gross versus a net density. So your gross density divided by 6 units would be 70 units. So if you just took 11.81 acres and divided it by 6 units an acre, you would get 70 rooftops. But you can't physically fit 70 rooftops because you have to have streets and detention and sidewalks and curb and gutter. So a pretty good estimate is that you lose about 20% of your gross developable land. So the net density would be 9.5 acres. 9.5 times 6 units an acre is 56. So if you were to do a straight R18, depending on the constraints that you have, it's roughly 56, but that depends on so many factors. Are the streets private, public, cul-de-sac? Do they connect through? So I can't tell you definitively on AutoCAD that that's what it is, but that's like back of the napkin math.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Scott, or are we ready to hear from the developer? Okay, you're off the hook now,
Hey,
Scott.
thanks.
Please come forward.
Good evening. Sorry for the water bottle. Woke up with a bit of a sore throat today, so I'll be popping some cough drops as well. I appreciate your service on the council, the new members and the previous members. I deal with a lot of councils. I know it's a tough job. It's not easy to make the right decisions for your city when faced with adversity. But I mean, that is your task. As you know, you represent the entire city. What we've heard today, the majority, if not all, are from people within the neighborhood that I get. If I had, that meadow in my backyard, I'd want to keep it too. And I'd want to protect, all the other things that they've talked about. And so I'm here today. And again, I'm a terrible public speaker. If I'm not making sense, if you're not understanding, please stop me. I'd much rather stop and get on the same page than me just babble on here. So I'm the developer. I represent this property, but also I've been doing this for, about 10 years. I was at Woodside, focused on affordable homes. We would find pieces of land that had, different issues. Couldn't do basements where everybody in Utah really wants a basement. We'd come in, develop the property without basements, bring the price down because we could, make it a little bit more affordable. And one of my, joys that I get is be able to drive through these communities and see people living in these homes that I know would not have otherwise been able to enjoy the neighborhoods that we've created. And that's why, I'm here today. I understand that people here want to, protect what they have. I'm here representing the 67 families that want to partake of what they're trying to protect, the great city that you guys have created. There's an opportunity that we have here to bring 67 homes, and to clarify, it is 67. I understand the confusion. It was 68. We've dropped it down to 67, and that's who kind of I'm representing, these 67 families that want to come in and build a home, put down roots in your community. And the way to kind of go into the way we've developed this property, the reason why we're not going in R18, this is a more affordable product. And it was kind of discussed what is attainable. And I wish I could tell you, I don't know what attainable is, but I 100% know that what we're proposing is more attainable than if it was a straight R18. Because if you do R18, what it causes is there was a plan shown where it had a road down the middle that would create super deep lots, much deeper than even the R110 or the R18 that's currently there, using up all that land. And then you have, those streets that those R18 have to pay for. So those make those lots quite expensive, and that just contributes to the home cost. So then that bumps those homes into the, $700,000 plus range, because they have to answer your question, they have to utilize that expensive lot that they have to develop because of all the land they're using and the lack of efficiency with the streets. And what we're, basically the layout that we propose is try to maximize the affordability of these homes, because the way it's laid out, if you can do those 4 rows, then each home only has to pay for what's in front of their house, versus if you do 3 rows, one home, they have to split that full road cost because there's not homes on both sides of the road, as one of the plans show there. And what we're proposing, and just to go back in terms of clarify, and I apologize, there were some things, there's been some confusion on what we're actually asking for. The 30-foot, it was brought up, maybe it's a 30-foot minimum, or what size. And originally we came in at R15, just to give all the history. We came in at R15 with a bunch of changes. We wanted to do a little bit smaller lot. We wanted to do smaller setbacks on the side and rear, just to make a more usable lot. And then we looked at the ponds and we thought, okay, that's already there. We thought that would be more acceptable just to continue that on. We got a lot of pushback on that. And so we said, all right, we'll go back to the R15. But this time we, looked at the home plans, worked with the home builders that we're working with, and said, okay, we can fit this smaller home with all the restrictions of a straight R15, with the only, and to go back on the setback. So currently, the R18 that's been discussed, that has side setbacks of 8 and 8. The R15 has setbacks of 7 and 7. So you're talking a foot difference of the surrounding community. Both of them have a 20-foot rear setback. A bigger difference is the R18 has a setback of 30 feet on the front, and the R15 is 20 feet. And again, that's a huge, a lot of people don't use their front yard to recreate. That puts more space in the backyard, takes, again, less cost to develop these lots, gives the homeowner more usable space with everything else. And again, sorry, I'm kind of jumping around. I've got a lot of notes. I'll get through it all. But in terms of the smaller front yard, as we're all aware, we're in a super drought right now. Who knows? I've heard people say there's going to be 1 watering a week next year. Hopefully that is not the case. Hopefully we get more water and we'll have plenty of water. But this community is also built to be efficient in terms of water use, which we really need. But to close up, I think, and so that those are really the differences in R18. It's a foot on each side of the home and 10 feet in the front. They both have, we're not going to be 15 feet. And I apologize, that way at one time we were asking for 15 feet. We've scrapped that. And the only thing we're asking for variance from the R15 is that 2-story home of a maximum of 30 feet. And that is, again, for affordability. It's much more affordable to be able to use that space above the garage, give those families as much space as they can get on that smaller footprint. These are going to be, and I hesitate to give the exact dimensions because I'm not the builder. They'll have to work within the dimensions and the setbacks, but the initial plan that we're looking at are, 30 to 32 feet wide. And so that they're 2-story homes, on a smaller footprint, but 2 stories to give, the homeowners as much room as they can at the lowest price. So that's why we're doing a maximum of 30 feet and asking for that 2-story. And going back to the R18, they're allowed 35 feet. And if you drive through the neighborhood, I always said 30 feet, I think 30% of them are 2-story. I feel like it's more. And also if you look at the ramblers there, they're ramblers, but they're half, because of the sewer and because they have basements, they're halfway out of the ground and they're tall roofs. I didn't measure any of them. I wouldn't be surprised if the majority are close to that 30 foot. So it's not like we're asking for something crazy that's not going to fit in what's around there. The 2 stories are there. The single stories are super tall. That's just the nature of this. And also what we're proposing is no basements. We know there's been flooding. We know there's been issues. And to speak to the flooding, if you look at that site currently, it's flooded right now. The way that they're currently using that property, they get water from the fish farm and it just sheet flows across. There's a stream going through. That's a irritable thing. That can be shut off. That water can be stopped from going on that property. There's other, things that are just going. So that site's continuously saturated. And then when you have a rain event, all that water just gets flushed down and there's a little inlet of the storm drain at the very bottom of the low point that then pushes in to the city unrestricted. There's no restriction now. What we're proposing is to capture all that water, put it in that detention bin, hold it, and then put it into the city, which I believe, I'm not an engineer, but I believe that will alleviate what's currently happening with that site to be able to flow across. And in terms of capacity, that I was kind of brought up the capacities. We've worked with the city. We sent the plans to the city. There's capacity, there's water, the storm drains can be accommodated. We're not, and again, because we're not doing basements, everything around, there's a land drain. And I don't know if I want to get into the details, but they're 2 separate things, your land drain, your storm drain. And I believe a lot of the flooding was caused by the land drain filling up and backing up and flooding basements to where we won't have land drains. We're not connecting into that system because we don't have basements. We're not going to contribute to the problems that have been caused by the existing land drain in that area. And so that's kind of that on flooding. And I'm just going to go through, I kind of went, would you like me to go through and address the comments that have been made?
I think, can I ask a question? So I recall in the planning commission that the street size, there's been a lot of comments on safety.
Yeah.
You've heard that a lot. The one that I haven't heard about is the potential for fire with the homes so close together. There was examples that were shared by the citizens about that hazard as well. So if I recall, these roads are so tight that there's going to have to be a special fire access road, if I recall this accurately, in order to accommodate if there's a fire there. Am I recalling that inaccurately?
I don't know. In terms of speaking of the fire, these homes are going to be 2 feet closer than what's already there, and they're going to be a code. I understand that's scary. Yeah, they're closer than our home. That's going to be scary, but these homes. And again, like I said, I've done this product everywhere. 5 feet is the maximum. They put them 10 feet apart. All the communities that were brought up, those were 10 feet apart and met all the fire codes. And some of those that were brought up were on 3,500 square foot lots, to where these are 5,000. Again, it's going to be a 30. So if it goes as designed, it'll be 8 on one side, 16 on the other. But in terms of the fire,
that's my question.
It's possible that there's an existing access there.
Right.
where the storm drain and sewer will drain through that's currently asphalt, that if needed could be an access. But we have, again, this is just the zoning, the comp set. We haven't got into that level of detail.
Well,
with
I
the
just
city.
recall in the last presentation when I was on the planning commission, those sizes of roads creates that issue, if I remember. Oh,
And in terms of the size of the roads, I just want to clarify. So we talked about, I think, the number of homes with the R18 was like 56. We're saying 67. So we're talking 11 more homes. I get that that's scary. You know, no homes is better. A meadow and no homes is better, is safer. I 100% get that. But the streets that these are going to exit onto are fully capable of handling that traffic. And I would argue that it would be barely noticeable, the increase. Again, it's scary. But the fact, I mean, I've done a lot of traffic study work, you know, seen a lot of traffic studies. It just doesn't create as big an impact as people thought. And in terms of the safety, these narrow roads have been proven to be safer than the wagon roads that we currently have. If you have that narrow road and parking on just one side, it's narrow, so it's not a runway. It's not a racetrack.
Yeah.
People don't, see just the wide open space and think I can just book it. They see a car parked on one side and a sidewalk and some trees on the other, and they think, okay, I got to take it easy on this narrow road. And again, these the narrower roads and the private roads will only be used by these citizens. No one outside of this community, there's no reason for anybody to go through. They'll go straight through the public road that connects the two.
Yeah. The issue is really the safety I'm talking about. I don't think you've answered that question, but it's okay. I've made note for the council to understand that we need to make, if that's the case, that would be a safety issue we would talk about later. So thank you.
I'm pretty sure fire will get addressed.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I'm very confident in that.
Yeah, that's right.
And it was just to stay on that theme. I'm trying to just go through the comments, make sure people feel heard and are addressed. The concern came up of, okay, there will be no parking on one side. Who's going to enforce that? The HOA will enforce that. All of those citizens will enforce, hey, John, so-and-so, call the HOA. They're not parked there. Send somebody to enforce this. And again, it relieves the stress of the city. They're not calling the city and have to use city resources to come and patrol that. The HOA itself will monitor that and make sure they're only parking on one side or hanging off the driveways. So that'll be monitored by them.
Thank you.
So do you want me to go through the comments?
It's kind
of
up to you.
Yeah.
Okay. I just don't want to make it seem like I'm just turning a blind. I mean, we've thought of these things. So again, I said the max height, 30 feet, 2 stories. We talked about that. There will be a pocket park that was mentioned. They're not the concern of no place for the kids to play. There will be a pocket park in the detention basin. And I've talked with Scott about this in terms of making this a more affordable community utilize instead of just putting, a space there that just they can use. Talking about doing a fee in lieu of open space with this project to contribute to finish the existing parks or improve the existing parks in North Ogden would be something that we'd be open to discuss versus just, making making the open space in this area a little bit bigger for just these residents. We think that money would be better used to improve the city's current parks. Talked about less water. Oh, and in terms of just the general layout of this site, I went through and counted all of your R18 kind of in the southeast corner of North Ogden, kind of a tenth of the city. And I counted, I think, 770 R18 lots to where, in terms of getting comp for people valuing their homes, there's plenty of comps. If somebody wants to come in and buy, I believe what they said, that $650,000 to $800,000 existing home, that will be there. There will be a comp to value their home based off. These would not be those comps. These, would be smaller. And in terms of the target price for these homes, what we're figuring now is that 450 range. I can't say that is 100% where they're going to be because every day that goes on, these homes become more expensive. And on that note, if you look at these homes, if you go back 8 years when Ward Farms was developed, and I've talked to the current property owner, there was some pushback on Ward Farms. Those were too small back when that was developed, and added to more traffic as Ward Farms grew. 8 years ago, as things have just gone crazy, people in this community will be given the same opportunity that Worth Farms was given 8 years ago. The prices are going to be very similar. That is the new, these lots that we're proposing are the new in terms of price point, are the new 8,000 bigger homes that is already surrounding that area. It just now, instead of pricing those people the people that live in that area and that, are opposing it, they had their chance, when they purchased how many years ago, they had that chance, they got that opportunity, and good for them. We're trying to provide that same opportunity for these 67 new families. Let me go through, just make sure I address everybody. Oh yeah, and the comment on Fruitland, we've been asked not to connect to Fruitland. We've been asked to use the 2 existing connections. Again, the city believes, and we believe they are fully capable of handling the additional traffic. We've been asked not to create that, not make that connection, because that would create more issues on those kind of blind turns on Fruitland. So that's why the project is designed that way. It, was stated we're trying to do that to save money. We'll put a road there. If the city wants that road there, happy to do it. And in terms of the public,
I ask a question on
Yeah.
that one?
Yeah.
And this might be a Scott Hess question, but are we not recommending going to Fruitland because of how close it is to that intersection at 2100 and Fruitland? Is that just the gist of why it's not recommended? Okay,
But it's still getting curb and gutter.
yeah, yeah, it'll be
So it will be improved between those 2 spots.
correct. Yeah, and we're open, there's been discussion on that, how exactly we want to do that because of the city's ongoing discussion on how they want to, see the future of Fruitland. We're happy to accommodate whatever the city decides on that.
Okay.
Let's see. In terms of a comment was brought up that I don't want to address, but I feel like I kind of need to. The outreach to the citizens, we met with them, we talked with them. We definitely, understand, where they're coming from. I haven't continued that conversation. I mean, as you see, it's a hot topic. To be called a carpetbagger in public, just emotions, are tied to that, and I get that. So my desire is just, work with the council, address any questions you have, and you can filter those, and we continue to communicate. Yeah, I hope I felt like I tried to address as many of the comments that, I could, and they're based kind of in facts and to clarify some things. So that's kind of our pitch. We're just trying to, make something more affordable, more attainable in the city. And that is, the result of the layout that we have and the request, because again, the number of lots, the 67 lots, every additional lot you have on there, they're all paying for that infrastructure. They're all paying for that road, and it's expensive. I mean, homes is not the only commodity that's gone up. Asphalt, pipe, just the construction of these roads has gotten way expensive too. And the homeowners pay that price. They don't just buy a lot, they're buying the street in front of it as well. And that's why we've asked for the private streets to decrease that. And I've talked about this in the past, but there's been concern about an HOA and private streets. And it was a concern 20 years ago. And there's concern of a community that was in your city that was done 20 years ago. And now people drive straight through that and are tearing up the roads, and they haven't set adequate reserves. It was never set up properly. It was that community, many others that caused reform in the requirements for an HOA to be set up. They have to say, okay, here's the roads, here's the future cost of these roads, put it in the reserve, make payment, make the HOA fees work with the future needs to take care of these roads in the future. So again, we've done, these with these new restrictions on HOA, that it's not an issue anymore in terms of can they be sustainable. You won't see what's happened in your city and other areas happen in this community. Mm-hmm. And again, it's just more affordable to build a 37-foot wide road versus the full 60-foot right of way that again is less safe, but more affordable for the end user, because they are the ones that ultimately pay for all of it. So that's what we've done. All right, I've blabbed on long enough. Please, if you have any questions, anything I need to clarify.
Councilmember Pulver.
So HOA, you said for roads, but what else are they going to be using for?
Snow. Yeah, they'll be plowing. So again, your city won't have to maintain anything besides that public road that connects the 2 public roads. The HOA will pay for the snow removal, the maintenance of those roads, the monitoring of any, parking issues on those roads. It'll be self-sustained and not tax the city's resources.
And you said the pocket park,
Yes.
was that on the,
It's not, it's the detention basin.
It's on the-
I should have labeled that.
all right. And so, but that's, kind of like half of our parks are underwater for part of the year anyways. But so, and I guess, is there any other, because I think the biggest thing that the citizens, at least that I've been hearing, what benefit are we getting from, adding more traffic, so, all that other stuff. We're creating, a cohesive connection in roads. I guess my real worry is that we're just adding what people label as problems. And I think if there's a way to say, hey, we're having a trail system go through something else besides, just plopping more houses in. And I guess that's the question that, and I think that's not just for this development, it's for all the other ones that have been popping up, is like, what's the, if you're asking for something that's a little bit more stretched than with the surrounding area, then what's, I don't say what's in it for us, but that type of thing.
Yeah, and I kind of alluded to that. I mean, first of all, these 67 lots are going to contribute. They pay impact fees. They all pay impact fees like the regular lots. They're going to contribute those impact fees to the city park system. So that money's coming in. All 67 are going to pay tax every year. That money's, going to come in. But and to address your question, like I said, in lieu of just putting a little bit bigger pocket park for just this neighborhood, we're willing to talk about fee in lieu of open space to enhance, to put that money, because the trail system through here, I mean, there's no connectivity there. It'd be, a trail from one end to the other, wouldn't really do anything, just eat up the land and then make it more expensive for them. What we'd propose to do is figure out the contribution to a fee in lieu to pay for enhancements on other parks in the city. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe there's a current park that's trying to get funded, and just make that contribution, say, okay, yeah, we did bring in more lots. We've also contributed to the enhancement of your current projects or current parks, however you see fit. And to kind of answer your question of what are you getting, that we're willing to figure that out to make it worth it, or however however it is. And that can all be done in the development. And that's why, with the private streets and with that change, we're asking for the 2-story and the 30-foot height maximum it will be done in the development agreement. And that something like that can be included in the development agreement. All right.
I listened to the Planning Commission meeting again from November 19th today. And a resident mentioned this in their public comments today. I'm sorry, I don't remember who it was, but I got the impression from the last Planning Commission meeting that there was strong opposition to R-1-5, and it kind of seemed like my summary of it is that you kind of threw up your hands and said, hey, then go ahead and suggest what you're going to suggest, and we'll come back to you. And so I did kind of mentally have in my head that you might come back with an R-1-8. I don't know if can you kind of explain to me what the process was like there? Because when the agenda came out on Thursday, I was slightly surprised. I thought there would be some sort of mention or some sort of accommodation to the comments from Planning Commission.
I went back today too and read that, and I 100% understand where you're coming from there. So going back to the history of it, we originally came with an R1 to the our original submission to the Planning Commission. The first one was an R-15 with multiple changes to the setback, the side and rear and height setback. I think there was one other. So there were, I think, about 4 or 5 changes that we were requesting for the R-15. As you know, that first Planning Commission didn't go well, so we said, all right, we'll go with what's existing. There's already the Ponds Park. We'll go there with just the one exception to that of the height. So we came to the Planning Commission you're referencing, asking for the Ponds Park designated zoning, and felt the community's not wanting that, and felt like the commission didn't want that either. So we said, okay, I feel like I feel like you guys want the R-15. If that's what you want to approve, go for it. And I went back to the meeting. I said, we're still going to pursue a similar design to what we're going through with the council, just to move the project along, because I felt, I mean, multiple times in what we do, we deal with the planning commission, but as you know, it's ultimately city council that makes that decision. We felt like that's where the commission was at. So we said, okay, go for it. And we'll talk with the council and give our, further our reasons as to why we feel. And we did. And we went away from the less restrictive, and the smaller lot and the smaller setback ponds and went back to an unmodified R15 with the exception of the height for affordability. So we didn't make a huge leap, but we did move in that direction. And again, it was stated in the minutes of that meeting that I said we are going to pursue what we're currently asking for. If I get what you guys are saying, if you want to approve something, that's something you can approve.
I have to add to that discussion. Earlier in the meeting, I mentioned that was my impressions being a commission member was that there was going to be innovation that would come back. So I was equally surprised to see the plan not really changed much and not incorporating that R18. So, I mean.
Yep. And I kind of led with that. We are trying to keep something affordable.
I know.
And any changes, any reduction in lot, any increase in side moves back to that, what you currently have, that, 770 R18 lots, that's $600,000 to $750,000.
So I understand that, but
no,
in my mind, it was pretty clear too, what we shared. So, okay, but that's okay. That's okay.
Go ahead. Councilmember Watson.
I just I have some comments between the council, but I don't know. I don't have further questions for the
All right.
developer.
So I have one quick question.
Yes.
It was mentioned you're only having sidewalk on one side of the street. So I've been looking, the lots all seem to be the same depth, about 88 feet deep.
The what?
The lots are all about the same depth. So how come you're not doing sidewalk on both sides of the street? I understand the parking, that I understand. But why not sidewalk on both sides of the street?
It goes back to the affordability, because the way it's set right now is if you do the two roads and the two roads and the 4 rows of lots, it gets them at that 88 foot depth with the sidewalk on one side and not sidewalk on the other. And if you were to add sidewalk on both sides, that takes another 6 feet, and it creates, it's not deep enough to make a home work. And so that's why we're asking, the mechanisms of it is to try to get the private streets as narrow as the city staff, the city engineer will allow, to maximize the buildable depth you have on those lots. That's why we're doing that.
Okay. Do we have any other questions for Blake or Derek? Sorry, I know Blake, Terry, and.
No, that's all right. I'll go. Call me anything but late for dinner.
Oh, so it's Derek. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Nope.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. If anything else comes up, I'm here. And if at the end of your discussion, will I be able to address any comments or make any further comments, or am I done?
I think so.
Yeah,
This is a work session, so it's slightly less formal in that sense.
Okay, so I'd like to come up after the discussion, just address anything that comes up with the council's comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, council, any discussions we want to have?
I hate to be rude, but can I make one rude statement? He
Typically allow it, but go ahead.
He had the opportunity to comment after we commented.
Correct.
This process is totally defunct unless there's back and forth.
So you'll have the opportunity at the end of the meeting to give public comments again.
And we can address his comments, because there's some things in here he said were.
And to add, there isn't any final decision being made tonight. So if he makes the last comments and you have problems with those last comments, you can make public comments at the end of the meeting to make sure it's addressed. And that gives us an additional 2 weeks to marinate on your comments and think about it.
So there's more opportunity for.
There'll be more opportunity at the end of the meeting. Yep, correct. Council, any thoughts? Go ahead, Councilmember Dowpaz.
So I've been thinking a lot about this, and when trying to get a zone, when going for a certain type of zoning in any area, You look at what's to the north, what's to the south, what's to the east, and what's to the west. And it truly is, this piece of land is truly surrounded by R-1-10, R-1-8 to the south. So it's R-1-10 to the north, -8 to the south, and RE20 to the east of Fruitland. There's a small sliver on the west that is a PUD, so I can understand the stretch of why they would ask for that in that sense. Another piece that is glaring to me is that this is in our general plan update in 2022. I know that this is somewhat of a pipe dream when we wrote this up in the general plan, but it says that this area is designated as potential preservation space. Now, I know there's really probably no way that we could completely preserve this land, because that would require someone to donate the land to the city or just keep it green space for the rest of time. But I just wanted to note that our general plan update of 2022 was asking for this area to be preserved in some way. And so those are the sticking points that I think of as we go through this discussion, is that I don't really believe that a R-1-5 is sticking to those intentions.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councilmember Pulver.
So I guess, I don't know, there's a lot of things on this, and they intertwine with the other proposals that are being brought to council as well. And so if I side dance on some of this stuff, I apologize, but I agree with many statements about HOA being good and bad. In this case, it's being accommodated for the smaller streets, which never a big proponent of. My daughter used to live in at Providence Point, and I think several folks that I've chatted with just don't like that. However, does it make things more affordable? That's to be determined. But it does increase your costs, and it never goes, the HOA fees never go down. And that's a part of your mortgage, basically. And so that's the thing I'd always kind of gets rolling. Having a development agreement with this whole thing is always fun. And I say that sarcastically because there's always back and forth. And I know anytime that we try to deal with that, there's always something we miss. And I know just in recent past, we've done better. But I think it just always leaves things, and it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. But if we can do something that is a win-win for the city and the developer and all the citizens around it, I'm all for it. I think that's I don't know if we've gotten there yet, but I see some favorable pushes back and forth. I think the biggest thing is, and people have said that Planning Commission kind of gave a different zone and was hoping to have a different look, and it didn't come to fruition. But that's totally, people have their property rights, and I'm a big proponent of that. And just because people surround it and they don't like certain things about it, the crazy thing is that I think most of the people that were complaining about views, be glad you don't live up on the hill, because you can have a 35-foot building right behind you and you get zero view instantaneously.
How big of a rock wall? I mean, a cement wall?
A cement wall too, 11.2 foot. So there's a lot of things around that could definitely, it's not good. And I don't, I'm not belittling that point, but I guess my point is that there's not going to be any meadows unless you buy it behind your house in North Ogden, unless I guess you are behind Barker Park, which will be a park. So I think there's one house that really everybody will want once we develop that. But anyway, I don't know if anybody understands what I'm talking about. Going sideways. So I guess so the heights of the house, that's a concern. I think we can work through that. But I think the infrastructure concerns, again, I think that's the biggest thing that always, and former Mayor Berube always talked about soft infrastructure, soft costs, because that was a big thing, you know, because anytime you add any more houses, you're talking about, well, how many more people is that? Do we need another a police officer? Do we need another person, another snowplow, because we just have more roads to clean up? In this case, probably not, but I think that all of that has to go into it. And thankfully, we have an incredible staff that goes through all those things and has little checks next to certain things as they go through the developers' plans and intentions. It's quite extensive. If you ever want to have a fun time, sit through one of those meetings, because it's a long one. And I think some of the big things that I wrote down, I think definitely are curb and gutter. I know that's one of the biggest things for council itself, not just 2100, but also other streets that are east-west down in that spot. I know 1700's been a big issue, but safety for kids, I think that was the biggest, the couple of check marks that I had was traffic increase and safety for kids, 100%. Because especially with those electronic bikes, which actually the state legislature is trying to restrict, but they're everywhere. And that means kids can literally go everywhere. So, and I think one of the biggest things that we're talking about is making sure that if there is traffic increase, how do we control it? How do we maintain what we have neighborhood-wise? Because that's kind of I agree. Once you start connecting roads, all of a sudden you have a throughway in your backyard. That's not something you want, and not something we're intending either. But at the same time, if you see two stubs, you know, it's like watching somebody buy something right on Mountain Road when you know that's going to be the biggest thoroughfare through the north part of Ogden, and you're just kind of going, okay. But you know, that's the kind of thing that we have to worry about as a city, is that we have to develop these things in the way that's going to be best for the whole city, because having a through road will also help people get out in an emergency. I mean, there's a lot of little things that I think we think as a worry or a complication. But anyways, I've talked too much. Anybody else? It's discussion though, right?
Yeah.
We're supposed
Correct.
to talk.
Agreed.
I'll share some thoughts. So I first became interested and passionate about city politics about 10 years ago in a similar situation, having higher density in my backyard. And I've learned a lot since then, as the higher density did go into my backyard. But one thing that I want to point out is that by our city definition, high density is between 18 to 40, 15 to 40 units per acre. And this is not high density in the term high density. And so I think a lot of people hear high density and they get worried. And really, it's higher density than what you're used to, but it's not technically high density. It is medium density. And so that was something that stood out to me in my research and studying and going over everyone's comments and thoughts. The average, from what I could calculate, of each lot is around 6,100 square feet. So I could be wrong, but there's not really a different zone between R18 and R15, but this is somewhere in between those as it falls right now. And we don't have a plat approval yet, so we don't know what it's going to actually look like. The pictures that we've seen are a general guideline. But there's some things that I like about this proposal. I like that there's deed restrictions. I like that it's 30 feet versus the 35 of the neighbors. I mean, obviously, the 27 would be less, but it's not as high as the neighbors at 30 feet. At first, I had heard 35 as a setback or an exception, and it's not 35. It sounds like it's actually 30. I liked that there's impact fees coming to the city. I like that there's 2-car garages and 20-foot driveways so that you could have 2 cars on the driveway and 2 cars in the garage. I like that it would connect 2 different neighborhoods together in just a flow sense. And I assume that 925 East would have sidewalks. I'll tell you some of the things I didn't like though. I felt like at first when this came to us, and I tried to figure out the meeting that it was, but I feel like it was brought to us before the November meetings even. And maybe I'm remembering wrong, but I wrote down in my notes at one point that this was shooting for the 400,000. And to me, that made this attractive because then it is hitting a population that, you know, needs homes just like all of us. And so I felt like that if it could be attainable by the state standards, then we are offering a variety of different properties. And there was a stage in my life where I really wished there was a nice, very small home that was attainable to me. And you know, that's changed over the years, what that number is, what that number looks like. But I feel like I looked up just a Google search what an average price is for a home selling in North Ogden right now. And I don't know if this is right or not, if Google's right or not, but it said between 520 and 540,000. So to me, if it's going for around 450 to 500, then maybe that means it's more like 500 with one 450. And so it's really kind of average of similar to what we've already got in our city. And so that's kind of concerning to me. So I feel like either make them smaller or less intricate and fancy or whatever we need to do, make them one stories, whatever we need to do to make it that lower cost level to where it can be attainable. Or from my calculations, and this was already brought up already, but from my calculations, right now we're at medium density, and to make it low density, all you'd need is 7 to 11 less units. So if you only took out 11 units, 7 to 11 units, then it could technically be the R18 and the low density by our city standards. So I feel like we're kind of close to both sides, but not really hitting either one. So that's kind of my perspective.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Go ahead.
I have a couple, I don't know if you can address this right now, but looking at the plot the way it is right now with the 67 homes, with the 2 entrance points on the sides. So down on I guess this is going to be the west side. Let's say there's an emergency down in there. So emergency vehicles, we've got, I don't know if we know what side the parking is going to be allowed on, and is that the same as the sidewalks? I don't know. I can see some concern for emergency vehicles getting down in that back corner. And especially if there's parking on one side of the street. And again, is it the same side as where the sidewalks are?
So real quick, the reason there's only parking on one side of the street is emergency vehicles need 26 feet. And so where there's roads 37 and a half, park on one side of the street, you're down to 26 feet. So, and that's to allow us as fire departments to put our outriggers out and still have traffic drive by. So it'll be tight, but we can make it work.
So in this case, if there was, say, cars parked along the side of the street, 5 houses deep, and the fire engine needs to get by there, there's nobody coming in and out.
Nope.
So we have,
Well, no, that's why there's 26 feet is so you can allow traffic to go by one side.
it can get down,
Yep.
plus someone can get on the other side.
Now, if we lay a hose across the street, that just shuts everything off.
Which that's going to happen anyway,
Mhm.
no matter what street it is. But this one,
Correct.
there's no other outlet. So, I mean, hopefully there's no emergencies, but. So is the sidewalks proposed to be on the same side as the parking that's allowed?
That's gonna have to, I don't know, that'll
Okay.
be. Yeah, he said yes.
Okay, and I think my only concern with that is the safety of kids and the kids are gonna use the sidewalks and then they've got cars to go through if they were to cross the street versus.
And this is where he'll work with Tim to make sure it's all designed correctly. Yeah, yes. ahead.
Sorry to butt in again, but on that note, if a lot of the concerns from the public had to do with infrastructure, traffic studies, what the roads can handle, the schools, the water usage, the flooding, the drainage, the stormwater, the safety, as far as like speeding and things like that, the infrastructure challenges and those kind of legal things, those would all have to abide or else the process would stop. And so the developer knows that, the city knows that, and it definitely wouldn't be approved or wouldn't be able to go any further in the process if there were any violations of any of those things. And so those are all valid concerns, but that's part of the very intricate process that the city goes through to make anything approved in the end.
Something that hasn't been talked about much in a lot of the discussions is being private streets for the majority of the development. And if I were a neighbor coming to protest this subdivision, I wouldn't bring this up because it's a positive to the city. And the positive is that we will not be maintaining the streets and we will not be doing the snow plowing. I was hoping that we could get an approximation. I had asked staff if they could work on this. It's okay if they don't have it available right now, but by not having to replace the streets in the future, how many millions of dollars does that save, say in 20 years when it needs to be, maintained or fully replaced, or in 40 years, whatever, does it save us a couple million, 3 million? I would really like to have an estimate because I think that's a part of the equation. It ultimately helps everyone in North Ogden as taxpayers. It's an HOA and it's their problem to address. And there have been a lot of concerns from the residents about HOAs and some of them going defunct in the past. And I think what we've learned is that there are laws in place now that when these developments are set up, they have to be financially viable for the 20 to 30 years in the future, and funds are set aside from almost from the beginning to be able to manage that. So if I don't know if John might be able to, or Scott might be able to address that. Do we have any estimations? Because that would be great.
Looks like Dave has that number for you.
Piece of paper, that's good.
Thanks, Dave.
You're very welcome. So just very rough estimate costs, just to give you an idea, and this is looking over a 20-year period for that in just roads itself. In seal coats, you'd have to do about 40,000. In chip seals, you'd have to do about 450,000. And if we had to rebuild the road, which, I mean, over a 20-year period, you'd probably at least do that once. I mean, you're looking at over 800,000. So you're talking 1.5, and that's not talking, then you're talking snow plowing. If we're not snow plowing this road, that's 2 people that would be snow plowing, no salt, those kind of things. So there is cost savings to doing a private subdivision, but there's always that other part that, if it doesn't work out, then, sometimes they come back to you and ask you to take it over again.
Yeah. That is helpful. Thank you.
Derek, did you have anything you said you wanted to reply to some of our discussion?
So it was brought up whether or not the 920 North would have sidewalk on both sides. It would be just a continuation of, if you drove from Word Farms to Fern Meadows, you wouldn't know you'd left the public street system, sidewalks on both sides, full public right away. In terms of the 400K, I'd love to say that we could get there. There may be one without any, just here's your base home, take it as is, no options. Maybe it could get there. They rarely do. People always, I want granite, or I want this, or I want that. But there might be an opportunity to get to that price point. But again, going back on this versus the R18, you R18 with brand new homes, the cost of development, they're going to be 700 plus homes if you can even sell them. Because I mean, if you look through Ward Farms and Fern, how many of those homes don't have basements? I think I saw maybe one, and all of the people, if they're going to pay that much for a home, they're going to want a basement. And it just doesn't with the water table and the issues. We don't believe that's the right choice for this site. And so you're constrained on asking somebody to pay $700,000 for a home and not getting a basement. And then in addition to the terms of the increased cost of the roads and the less efficiencies you get on not being able to, with that 30-foot front setback pushes you out of being able to build the 4 rows on there. You're going to build, so you're going to have one street that's single loaded. And so you're basically, instead of 2 homers splitting the road, it's, and not exactly, but it's 1 homer, you know, paying for the full road. That obviously gets spread out, but I mean, to keep it simple, you're, instead of spreading the cost of 2 roads across 4 homes, you're spreading the cost of 2 roads across 3 homes, which is a dramatic increase in the cost of that home. And so, I mean, it really just comes down to whether you want more of the same, whether you want more, you know, to add to that 770 R18 lots that's in that area, and just, you know, that $700,000 price range, and keep those. And that's what you want in your city to continue to grow. I mean, that is your decision. We're proposing something that will allow, you know, your teachers, your first responders, somebody at that lower price point to come in to your city and enjoy what you have. And so my question, you know, for the council to kind of, if you would go around and say, you know, your thoughts on this project, whether you support it or what you would need to see to support this project. And again, I'm not asking for a vote. This is nothing official, just getting your general take of what's been presented on whether you support something like this for, you know, a more affordable home, or if you just want to stick with the R18, or what you'd need to see somewhere in between. We talked about, you know, contributing, you know, a fee in lieu to contribute to the parks or something else, whatever you'd see. Because for me, I mean, for the way this is configured, and it has some limitations and the cost of the land, I don't see it working as an R18. I'm sure that's great news to a lot of people. And that's why we're pushing for what we're pushing in the R15. So I'd like to, you know, get your thoughts on whether or not you would support an R15, or what you would support with modifications, or just, you just want an R18.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Question before we got into that is, I forgot to ask, there was a question on elevation difference between the 2 current developments as is. Is that going to change, or are you going to like?
It already naturally sits lower because the reason why the homes around, I talked about this, you know, the Rambler, the 2.5 story, basically the Ramblers coming out of the ground. That's mainly because of water level and sewer depth. And so those homes, I mean, most people want their basement in the ground. It's usually almost always forced to be out of the ground because of site conditions. And to where that's why if you drive around the community, you see those taller Ramblers, because they've been forced because of development conditions to come higher out of the ground. To where this site, without the basement, you don't have that restriction. You can just, the site already sit naturally. If you go look at it, it naturally sits lower than the surrounding, and it will continue. We're not going to bring in build to bring it up, and homes aren't going to stick out because they're slab on grade.
Yeah, because somebody was saying like their land ends here and then there's a drop off until so that's going to remain, is what you're saying.
And it was designed that way. If you look at those homes, Ward Farms, all of those have drains in the backyard, and we would have something similar that connect to the storm drain. So they all, you know, you have to have negative, you know, positive drainage away from the home. So they will go to the backyards and then pick up on those drains and be taken out.
Okay.
So that's accounted for. But you're right. I mean, we're not going to come, just the way the site is, you know, Ward Farms and all those are built up because they build them up so they can put in those basements. So it's not a true 2-story Rambler where your foundation there, you have the 2-story, and then you have, and some of them are that way, 16 steps going up to the front door. That's not, you know, to not have that, it would have, I mean, they would have had to bring in so much fill on those other developments to keep those in the ground. And that's a huge expense. They didn't do that. And that's why those homes stick out. Ours would not do that. Ours would be slab on grade on the existing land and work with the existing topography.
So if I understand, not only are you going to be, you're asking for 30 feet, but you're also going to be 4 feet lower than the neighbors. So you're
5 feet.
5 feet lower.
Yeah, correct.
But that can't be all the way. Is that on the north side and on the south side? that it's 5 feet lower than the neighbors?
Sorry, not 5 feet in elevate, 5 feet in terms of the existing home, all the, the R110 to the north, the R18 to the south are maxed out at a 35 foot. So
Okay,
the
sorry.
homes can be that tall. I don't know the exact, I'm sorry, I don't know the exact elevation in terms of what they're at and what we're going to be at, but the homes, they're, and a lot of them can be that 35-foot max. We're capping that at 30 feet.
Sorry, still another question. So, and then one other thing is, I think Councilmember Watson might have said it was deed restriction. And that was for how long?
Or sell. I mean, we're open to, it's tough. And we'd love to we could do 10 years. The only issue we have with that, I mean, we definitely want to do 5 years because it enables someone who comes into that home, builds that equity, and then wants to move. And that's another thing that I didn't address. With these homes, it creates a better community. It creates a more diverse community in terms of home sizes. It allows people that are in the bigger homes than Word Farm the Fern, okay, I don't want to take care of this huge yard anymore. I want to downsize. Some of these homes will be able to have a master on the main and a smaller yard and a smaller home to take up. They can downsize, and the people the young families who moved into these homes say, hey, I love this neighborhood. I want to move up to a bigger home. They can swap, and it just creates an opportunity to move around. But and sorry, I got sidetracked. To answer your question on, sorry.
Deed restriction.
Deed restriction. Yes, sorry. Yeah, I knew it was involved. So the reason why we wouldn't want to put it at 10 years, we're happy to do it 5 years because it allows those people to come in, build that equity, and then rent their own home. Not, to continue, they move up and maybe they can keep that equity for a certain amount of time if they needed to go do something else to give them flexibility, but it restricts, Berkshire Hathaway or someone coming in and buying a load of homes that no home for the first 5 years would be able to be, purchased by a home rental company. It'll be only for sale.
So, in a development agreement like this, the zone is attained by an average of the lot sizes of all the lots combined, right? So
It's set up based on the setback. So they have to have minimum frontage, minimum side, all that, and then a minimum lot size. Our homes, like you said, are bigger than that because just to make the home work, they can't be but it's not on an average. It's just you have to for every lot, meet the minimum requirements. And the way, when you lay something out, like Scott mentioned, you have the corner lots, some of them are 10,000, some, 7,000, some of them are the 5,000. It's, kind of vary, but this layout came from, we gave the engineer, hey, here's this zone, make all the lots work with this home size in mind. And that's how they lay it out.
So maybe I'm thinking outside the box too much, but if we were to take away a few lots and make it similar to an R18 configuration, but because it's a development agreement, we can make some exchanges here so that it's a win-win, as was brought up. If there were some, I don't know if this is possible, but if there was a way to do the 20-foot setbacks with the R18 amount of homes in the area. Do you see where I'm getting? It's almost like it would look like an R18 just with some different setbacks. Is that?
Yeah, and I get what you're saying. I mean, the biggest difference would be going from that 55-foot width to the R18 80-foot width. And
the roads?
Yeah, the lot, the home side. So then you'd have, a lot bigger side yards, wider front yards, wider backyards, but because the depth is really the kind of the sticking point. And again, I sound like a broken record and I push back on this, but it's all in when you do that, every lot you lose, you spread, the roads aren't going to change. The roads are going to cost the same. Every home you take away from paying for those roads and paying for that land, you move away from that $400,000 to $450,000 price point. So again, I hate just to be a broken record on that, pushing back on that. I'd love to say, oh yeah, for sure we can do the R18. And then you get into the territory of, okay, you have these kind of weird, super wide lots with the smaller home trying to be affordable, then you're paying for all the land and all the roads. So but I mean, it's, something we could consider.
So he asked if you want to do a straw poll. You don't have to vote, or, I mean, it's a discussion only. We're not voting.
Yeah, I'm
But
just looking for feedback.
yes, is it any feedback on R15, R18? How are you feeling?
I'm leaning towards the R-1-8.
Oh, my.
I am as well.
And my perspective is, I don't know how hard they have tried to make R-1-8 work yet. I get the feeling they could make it work, but I'm not the development professional.
Well, I think what we're dancing around right now is the fact of what product do we want to see? And I think that's what you're talking about as well. Do you want an affordable product, or do you want the same stuff that you got all over, and that's totally, something we need to talk about, because, and that's kind of why I'm bugging Scott so much, I think, is that, and, he smiles every time I ask him, but, what else do we need in the city? Do we need, hey, RE20, we need that right there, or do we need, I don't want to say apartments, people will yell and scream at me, but what do we need in that location of the city? And to be honest, at this point, it's kind of like flip a coin, because it could be anything, because we don't know. As citizens, or as the council, we have to make sure that we're preparing for build out of the city. And if we don't have enough houses or, small enough lot sizes to accommodate what the state is going to impose on us, right or wrong, we've been pushing back really hard, by the way. I think that's one thing, we're not doing anything. Yeah, we are. In fact, we were just, I was arguing with state senator, representative, one of the two today. So it's one of those things that I think kind of goes in the background and nobody understands, but it's something how you shape your city. I don't want to use a link this anymore, but if anybody's played Sim City, you don't play a residential thing next to a sewer. One of those little things, because I'm talking outside that. Okay, so nobody knows what I'm talking about, but just a matter of the fact that you're not going to get any people to move there. And I think that's the point, is that if we get a product that no one's going to move into, what's the point? And I think big, small, doesn't matter what lot sizes we need. As the council, we have to figure out, no offense to the developer, he's trying to do what's best for him and the resident or the property owner, because why not? Everybody in this room will do the exact same thing that they're doing. So I think the problem is, as council, is that we have to sit here and figure out not just what do the citizens want to live in the area, but what's best for the city. And that's the hardest part about this whole stinking mess right now. So what am I leaning? I'm leaning for what's best for the city, which I haven't figured out yet. But the planning commission said -8, and I think that's close. But I think if there's some concessions to the 8, I think there's something in there. The whole part about the development agreement is to make a win-win. If there's fees in lieu of, maybe some figuring out on both ends, both sides, north and south, that touch people's, property that, the setback has to be a little bit more. I know, so you don't have you're looking at a 30-story or 25-foot, whatever. So anyway, I don't know if that helps at all, but.
Yeah. And to answer the question, I mean, could it be an R18? I mean, yeah, you can lay anything out. Will it pencil out? We haven't got it to work. Maybe somebody else could. Maybe it'll, maybe somebody after us will come and do an R18, or maybe, somebody will believe what the legislature is going to do, and because it's just tough for the landowner. Okay, the legislature's doing this. Maybe someday they're just going to force it down people's throat to do the 5,000. I don't know. But I've come up with a plan that we know, is more attainable than what's there. We know that will work, and that's what we're pushing for.
The planning commission was very sensitive about ownership rights, and the planning commission wasn't against a more affordable option. There was a lot of discussion that said this piece of property is just kind of an awkward piece to try to squeeze so many homes into. So it was more about that, just maybe the wrong place for trying to attempt this. And especially with the feedback from the citizens, I mean, that was an overwhelming group. So we weren't against the idea of what we're talking about, affordable housing. It's just that this did not feel like the right it just didn't, the property just seemed not quite there to be able to handle that many homes. I mean, that's kind of, so I don't want to give the wrong impression to the planning commission. It just, we were trying to be, we wanted it to work. And that's why we said, you know, R8 and see what you can do about being innovative with it. And I'm not sure you did that or not. Maybe you did, and it still doesn't pencil. So, but just to give you perspective on that. Yeah, a little bit.
And part of the reason that I'm leaning towards R-1-A is I feel like that kind of is the compromise. Because if we wanted to look at the surrounding zones, we could say, oh, maybe it's supposed to be R-1-10 because it's R-1-10 to the north and RE20 to the east. So we could justify as a council that we believe that it's required to be R-1-10. The reason that I'm kind of leaning towards the 8 is it's to me, it feels like a small concession because it's still matching to the south and is allowing you to get a few more units in there. So that's kind of the reason that I'm leaning that way.
There was some discussion about going R10 on the planning commission. So you're right on that. That was kind of us trying to be responsive to both sides.
All right. Well,
Can I give my straw poll answer?
sure. Yeah, go ahead.
It's tricky. To me, whether it's an R-1-8 or an R-1-5, they're very similar and they're very close bordering zones. And so whether it was, you know, almost an R-1-8, but still an R-1-5, or an R-1-8, but with some concessions, I think I'd be interested to see some of that creativity. You know, maybe it comes back as an R-1-5 again, but there are fewer units and or lots, I guess, fewer lots, but there are still the same setbacks. If it were a lower price point, because you still have the HOA on there too, and so those starter home families, you know, they have to pay the HOA fee in addition to the purchase price, and so I don't know. I feel like either lower the price somehow or make some kind of, I mean, to me, it's not whether it's the R-1-5 or the R-1-8 because I like the idea here. And like you said, if it's in the 700,000 range, but it doesn't have a basement, then not only would that not pencil out for a developer, but no one would buy them. And so I think it's beneficial to the city to bring this property in from the county. But what does that look like? I'm not sure. So I feel like it's close, and I really like the opportunity to provide a different home value than what some prices are, and so it's kind of where I'm sitting.
So for those that want the R-1-8, I mean, is there any room on that? Because I mean, for me, the biggest sticking point that really kills it is that 30-foot front setback. I mean, is there an R-1-8 with again, with the one exception of the 30-foot front set, or sorry, a 20-foot front setback, and keep all the other setbacks the same?
I'd be curious to see what that looks like.
That would be a development agreement type.
Yes.
You'd have to work with Scott to get us.
Well, I'm at it, yeah, we can definitely paper it. It's whether if that would be acceptable to you to have that concession on the R-1-8 to kind of push the R-1-8 into a more affordable.
I would like to see what that looks like.
Okay. 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 I'll go back. Hopefully we can figure something out, and we'll see you on my birthday.
Oh.
24th.
Lucky yes. Yeah.
Wow.
I've done that before. It's
That's sweet.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your patience and understanding
Yeah,
too.
you bet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're moving on. Item number 7, discussion on culinary and secondary water in the Hidden Hill subdivision. Presenter is going to be John, our city manager and attorney.
Okay, hopefully, can you hear me okay? Is this mic working? Perfect. No, it works. This is good. So council, this is, I'm going to pull up a map of the city, just a Google map, because to help give a little perspective. But up in the northeast quadrant of the city, we are having several landowners who are asking us to work with them on secondary water issues. And so kind of in this area of the city, I wish it would stop going over those, but there are various developments and parcels that are being proposed as developments who are having issues servicing the area with wet water. So the idea is that there's actually infrastructure in the ground to pump water up there. There's pipes that can connect there, but there's water rights issues, and then there's some other complications that are happening as part of the secondary water system. And we do have Jeff Humphreys here to answer questions on that, and I appreciate him being willing to stick with us for 2 hours and 15 minutes. But the real issue for the council and from the staff perspective is that because we have so many people that are in similar situations, they're not identical by any means. I think that the city council needs to treat this whole area in the same way. You need to work with the landowners, and it can be that each person gets a different ultimate solution, but I think you need to treat them all the same way. And the staff is we've gone back and forth. We're a little split. There's some infrastructure needs we have in this area for additional water tank and some things. Some of the property owners are willing to work with us on that. In fact, the one who's spearheading this discussion with the Hidden Hills is open to providing some ground. But the main request that seems to be coming from all of these is either permanent or temporary use of our culinary water. And that can be somewhat problematic. We have enough water rights in theory to provide water to handle this. Some of the landowners are proposing that they reduce the amount of units on their acreage to basically offset the water need, partly because they would like, larger lots. They don't necessarily want a 2-acre lot. They might want a 5-acre. But then also partially because it's an incentive to the city to say, okay, instead of 35 connections, you'll have 10 connections. And that's overall less water use for the city. So let us use outdoor water. The staff report was meant to spur your thoughts and stir your minds on what you might want to know, so that as we come back to a future council meeting with actual decisions, we can bring the information you'd want, as well as so that these developers and landowners can provide you with the information you're looking for as we do individually. One of them, and I'm going to zoom in on it here, is the one you've already talked to. This is the Jordan Park subdivision where this grading has occurred. There's 37 homes in that subdivision. They currently have some water shares, but can't get them up the hill into the secondary water system that can provide them secondary water. So they actually had a physical connection to the pipe that was disconnected just to make sure that it didn't charge up the system. And then there's others that are over here on the east side of the cove, where they have same thing. They have the water shares, but there's not the ability to it's called wheeling it, to wheel it up the hill, even though it's pumping, to get it into the area where it can actually serve the area. And so we have a few folks here who, will have some information for you. One of those is Geneva with the Hidden Hills subdivision. But we also have Jeff with Pineview, who can maybe provide some questions or answer some questions or provide some additional details. We've got Jason with our water department, and then Dave, obviously. This is water is becoming a bigger issue, especially with the state's push to refill the Great Salt Lake. And so it's just going to be one of those battles we're going to face as a state. And ultimately, the state engineer's office, who actually is the most powerful individual in the state, is the state engineer. You didn't know that, but they control the water. The water controls the residents and the state. So that's actually the most powerful person in the state, more than the governor, I would say. And so anyways, what questions do you have for me? I mean, they're here to provide information. Geneva has a presentation on what their proposal is. Jeff has information about Pine View. So what are you thinking, council? What would be helpful? Again, we're up here because of the how big these topics are. We didn't want to force everyone into the tiny room next door. But this is kind of an open discussion opportunity for y'all.
I don't know about discussion. I just, my thoughts, at least at this point, having talked with several folks on this, and did Brian keep, no, he punted. Anyway, even Mountain View folks, that, permanent, I think, is a big slippery slope. I know there's a couple places around the city that already do that, but I think when we talk about developments, I think that would be a hard pass for me for permanent. If it's temporary, there needs to be literally an ironclad thing where there's hundreds of thousands of dollars involved in something where it has to happen in a certain period of time. And if it doesn't, then the developer loses their shirt or something. So, and then the biggest problem I have, if someone wants to say, oh, well, we can just do what you're saying and have less this and less that, or, just zero-scape it, who's going to enforce that? I think we're stretched as it is. We need two more CSOs. And I think the problem is that, well, the HOA will enforce that. I don't buy it. I just have a really hard problem with the enforcement part of any of that. And the fact that the state is now taxing the city to have its own water, which I think is ridiculous. But in the future, I think that's going to become more and more. And were they trying to figure out how much water flow was coming from the wells too, or something, where we had to meter it or figure out how much was being overflowed? There's a whole bunch of little things going on the side. And then, yeah, like you said, refilling the Great Salt Lake and that big, I don't know, I can't say what I really want to say here in public, but I think that's something that the entire state needs to figure out. And, since the farmers have basically they can do what they want, it's going to be on us citizens to figure it out. And that's going to be the problem, is that when you say the citizens, quote unquote, that's going to be the cities and any water provider. So anyway.
Would it be helpful with that to have Jeff with Pine View maybe talk about
sure
potential availability? So so then you can nuance the permanent versus temporary discussion.
Yeah, because I know metering is going to be a huge thing that I think a lot of people on Pine View are going to be in for an insta shock when they see that coming. Sorry.
Yeah, Jeff. Yeah.
All right, so I'm Jeff Humphrey, the general manager with Pine View, and Weber Box Elder Conservation is the one that serves the secondary water for everywhere north of 12th Street. And obviously everyone knows we're out of water. Sorry, I can't grow anymore. I can grow alfalfa down south, but I can't grow water up here. It's been a struggle. I mean, Geneva, Barry, everyone up in this area is trying to figure out how to get water up there, and with Mountain View as well. We've ran out of water. All of our water sources are 100% allocated. North Ogden Irrigation Company or Canal Company has a little bit of water left, but it needs to stay down below and within their boundaries. We've actually reached our max that I can take out of their boundaries as well. And in the meantime, I've met with a couple different people to try to how to figure out the solution. And the solution is we've got to be more efficient with the remaining water sources that we have left. And I know these developers have come to you guys. We're trying to use your culinary water for outside use. That's, in my opinion, not a solution. I know they're probably going to start throwing tomatoes or something at me while I'm up here, but culinary needs to stay where it needs to be. It's the worst part of water use right now is consumptive use. And the biggest offender of that is outdoor use. We all know that outdoor use just goes in the ground, evaporates before it meets the aquifer. So I met with Weber Basin yesterday to see how they've done it. Obviously, everyone knows Weber Basin is probably the leading edge of efficiency in water. They serve a lot of customers all the way from north of Park or up above Park City all the way out to Bountiful. They serve culinary and secondary. I'm just a secondary water provider, but I have over 35,000 customers in the Weber and Box Elder County. And so they had a thing, they said they sat down, what's the need? The need is growth, environment, economy, and quality of life. All those go together. They're goals. I mean, we enjoy a quality of life, economy, environment. And obviously we're not going to take care of the growth. We're all here because someone made a tough decision at one point. Every decision we make, it's going to benefit the future. So I went back and said, what are my goals going to be? And how did they come back with this? And their efficient water. They cut down their water use for outdoor use. They said, all right, how much water is needed for a parcel or acre or whatever? And they came to a number, it was 0.38 acre foot per parcel, up to a quarter acre foot. Quarter acre foot maxes, or quarter acre lot maxes out at the 0.38 of an acre foot. If you have 2 acres, you're still only getting 0.38. Granted, I've got to take this to my board to see if my board would even be for it. If that's the case, if I can get my board talked into efficient water, we can solve all these problems and use secondary water. Because now the developers, we have a solution. Weber Basin has water available for them to buy and transfer into my system. Granted, they're only going to be able to water 0.38, up to a 0.38 acre feet. How are we going to police that? With our meters. We have a great portal. Anyone that's on my system and willing to call in and get signed up on our system, they can map out exactly their usage from the day that drop hits their meter till they hit their full allocation. We'll come out and shut them off when they hit that 0.38. We'll give them, they can set up their own alarms when they hit 50%, 75%, 90%. We'll also send them out letters when they hit that 75%, 90%. Start cutting it back your water. Another restriction that Weber Basin's gone, and there's no way of policing this, but we can police it with the meter of the water uses, the amount of grass they're able to plant, up to 4,000 square foot lot or yard of turf grass. They do drip irrigation, 1,650 feet of drip irrigation. So the systems are out there that can police themselves. What I'm here to ask is if you guys would be willing, when we get together, and like I said, I got to take this to my board of directors and see if they're willing to go into a water efficient, and I'm hoping they are, is each city is going to have to change their own ordinances. Every city has their different ordinances. Ogden City, 60% green space, which in my opinion is astronomical. If we can go into more of a, not a xeriscape, but a water-wise landscape as a community, we can preserve our remaining resource that we have left. Any questions?
What is that in gallons that you said the restriction was? Or limitation?
It equates out to 125,000 gallons for outdoor use. It was like 200, and don't quote me on these numbers, like 265,000 gallons for indoor use and 125 for outdoor use. I deal with acre feet, sorry, so I don't deal with gallons.
Do you know roughly what the average person uses per day when they're watering?
Not off the top of my head, but the average person, what we found with the ones we had metered last year and we started monitoring it, they used about 1.5 acres for the water season.
So a lot more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, you said 0.3 and they're using 1.5?
Yeah, but you got to realize these are people that have 3/4 acres lots. You know, they don't have a restriction of what they can plant. And this whole meter stuff, it's new. It's education. The more we can put it out there is the better we're going to be in 5 years from now. There's warm grasses that we need to start teaching people to use, like Tahoma 31. It only needs to be watered once every 10 days and mowed once a month. I'm mowing my lawn twice a week right now. Well, not now, but I did mow it right before
Well,
Christmas.
I was going to say, maybe.
I mowed my lawn 2 days before Christmas, so.
You probably almost mow right now.
I live in Brigham City, and being in the water industry, I put all my stuff on Smart Waters. I have a little over 4,000 square foot lawn. I never even came out of my base rate because they only have culinary water up there.
So metering, who pays for the meter to be installed? Out of curiosity.
Right now is being paid with grant funds
Oh.
through the state. We've gotten a couple different bondings over the last couple of years. After those funds are up this year, it would be on the homeowners. But we do have, we have to have everyone metered by 2030, and I'll have every one of my customers metered by the end of this year. While we still have free money, then in new development, we require the developers to pay for that meter.
So say that again, every one of Pine View's secondary water customers will be metered by the end of this year. Wow.
There will be a little bit of cleanups, like where we need to go and separate two services or something, but majority of ours will be 100% metered. We have 8,000 left to do, and most of that is in North Ogden.
Once it switches over to the customer paying, what's the estimate for cost for that, for a meter, out of curiosity?
We're not there yet.
You don't know how much that would
We're,
cost?
for them to do a full connection and meter, it'd be about $2,800. I'm hoping to avoid all that and have it all done this year. Now, when the new development comes in, of course, the developer is going to push that cost onto the home.
Yeah. $2,800 to set up a meter.
That
your
includes
secondary.
meter, connection, and time and material.
Okay, okay, you're talking about the connection then too, okay.
Mm-hmm.
For an existing customer who already has the connection, what is going to be the cost for the meter?
$1,250.
$1,250.
I do know that number because I was running some numbers earlier.
For the people that have meters now, is there somewhere they can see how much they're using?
Yeah. Yeah, all they have to do is call in to our office, or we do have an email. It's on my website. It's meterportal@pineviewwater.com. And they can log right in. They'll set them up with their own login and be able to monitor their own usage. Now, right now, everything's based on an allocation because that's how our whole system's set up. But by 2030, we'll have to go into a usage rate just like culinary water is. I don't know how we're going to do that legally. So
Yeah, the Mountain View ones actually have a digital readout so you can see.
we have ours locked out so they can't shouldn't get into there.
What's the fun of that? Anyway.
That's why I had to stop myself and say shouldn't get in. Where they can see it all through just like a dashboard. Any other, your utility bills, it's that same type of concept.
So what you're asking is whether or not we would be willing to change an ordinance to be more, not restrictive, but
I like to call it water wise.
Yeah.
I
don't see any problem, especially when we're talking about places that can't potentially get any. You know, talking to some of the developers like, well, we'll just xeriscape it and call it good. But I'm like, well, there's native plants there already. I mean, there's a lot of native plants in Utah that are very waterized, period.
Yeah.
So I think there's definitely potential all over the place to have, especially up on the hillside where you don't want a crap ton of, anyway. Yeah, I'm talking too much again.
Now, like I said, I got to still bring this in front of my board of directors. If this meeting was next week, I'd have you answers because my board meeting is on Tuesday to see if they'd be open to it. But it's the direction I believe we need to go. If we require 2 acre-foot per acre on residential lots right now, that's, in my opinion, too much for the future. I mean, I want my kids to grow up here. Everyone else does. But if we run out of water, where are they going to go?
Yep. Thanks.
In terms of the efficiency by metering, so you're saying you have you can't meet the demand right now, but with this efficiency initiative, you would be able to, does it increase your efficiency by what %?
Well, how we're going to be able to meet that, so we're out of any water of Weber Box Elder through the Ogden Rivers water shares. The only available water that is kind of remaining is the North Ogden irrigations. But Weber Basin, when they brought in the Weber Basin project in the 50s, they set up theirs in 4 blocks. They are now able to sell their 4th block of water, and they're the ones that is pushing the efficiency of where that 0.38. So they don't run out of water over the next however many years it takes to sell that. And it is expensive water. It's $22,405.
So the meters would enhance your efficiency though of your existing water
It is,
available.
but we're in allocation right now.
Okay.
So I don't know what your property is, but let's say you have 3 acre feet. If you're one of the older homes there, Because we went into the 2 acre feet in 2016, but anything prior to that had 3 acre feet. And to say you were only using an acre and a half, the way it's set up, that water is for that property now. When the state of Utah forces everyone to go to a usage rate, that's when we can start taking that excess water you haven't used and use it.
Make it more efficient.
But legally, I can't do it right now.
But there's a percent, is there been studies to know I mean, does that make your system 50% more efficient to be able to deliver? I'm just throwing a number out there.
The goal and hope is for a 20 to 30%.
Okay.
And that's what the studies have showed.
Okay.
So the
going-
metering,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. When you hit your max with the metering, does it shut off or just charge you more?
Nope, it shuts off. Well, the meter itself don't shut off. We physically have to go out with an employee and shut that off, and we will lock it out.
Yeah.
And there is a $500 reconnect fee for the following season.
So it's per season, not like per month or per
No,
week
per
or
season.
anything. Okay.
So for our discussion tonight with these developments up on the hill, what do you have to give to us?
Please give me time. I haven't got much sleep since we started having this problem. Like I said, we've been in a lot of discussions with them because I would like to serve them water, but I can't serve them stuff I don't have.
Okay.
And why can't Mountain View, is it just they don't go far that far east? 'Cause I can't remember where they're.
Mountain View can't transfer any water, certain waters through our system
Okay.
without it going through Weaver Box, and the only available water is the North Ogden irrigation.
Which is all gobbledygook to me. But yeah, I get you that there's one thing that can't pay one to the other. So you can say a lot of words, but it still wouldn't make sense to me. So you just can't get water to them.
Correct.
In the way that I think the common person would understand.
They don't have the water shares to be able
Yeah.
to transfer through our system.
And
And it has to,
that's
it has
the
to
key
go
thing.
through my canal to get into Mountain View's system. And
Yeah,
they
and-
pump right out of our canal.
Which is crazy because Mountain View, literally that person has water shares. That you own that land, you
But-
have water shares.
But the water shares they have is North Ogden irrigation, and they have
Right.
bylaws that has to stay below their canal.
Yep.
And when I was in discussion with Cammy and them last year, before it came up, it was like in February, March, said, oh yeah, we'll be able to transfer. Because I did not know we had, that North Ogden wouldn't allow us to take any more at that point. And then a month later, they're like, wait a minute, you're taking all of our water. We've been using your water for 40 years. What do you mean I'm taking all your water? And that's when we started diving into it.
Gotcha.
Well, good. We're not making a decision tonight.
No,
We'll give you
exactly.
time.
Thankfully.
That's why they asked me to come, and my suggestion was give me little bit of time to look into the water efficiency, get my board in the direction, because we got to stretch this water out for the next 50 years. And then at the same time, if you guys would be willing to look at the more water-wise landscaping, if I can come to you with some of those efficiency standards, say, hey, if you guys would be okay to this for any new development, then we would be able to serve these properties.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
There you go.
So basically he's saying he wants to treat the high desert as a high desert. I don't understand that, but anyway. That's it.
Who would like to listen to next?
So it might be helpful to, I mean, to maybe have Hidden Hills come up and talk about what they're kind of talking about and proposing. That might be helpful for the council.
Okay. Geneva?
Yep. And this should go to full out. He's gonna all have it. Everyone have a copy. So first off, thank you. This is a very long meeting, so I appreciate you letting me come up at the end and give this. And secondly, I'm going to say, as much as I love John Call and how much I've worked with Jeff Humphreys over the last 6 months, can we disregard a lot of what they said and look at Hidden Hills from its own perspective as I present it? Just neutrality, as I will address a lot of what was talked about in here towards something that's being given to the city. So as long as we're all looking at that, and oddly, a lot of which validates my numbers, a lot of the information Jeff just gave you, I put into what I gave you tonight into this handout, which really shows to, you know, what we'll talk about. But let me give you some history on Hidden Hills. Hidden Hills is right off of Jake Drive, up at the top where John Call showed. There is currently one home under construction. 8 months ago, we came in and did a 1-lot subdivision. That home is part of the overall 10 lots that you're seeing on this plat. However, that home was in still when we could have North Ogden Irrigation turned over and is being serviced by Mountain View Irrigation. So that one home, however, this is all 10 home project, that one home is actually serviced by Mountain View Irrigation. So we're talking 9 lots as an overall. So when the landowner came and said, hey, I have the rest of this 70.2 acres, and I'd really like to develop it, and I would like to do a private community, large estate lots, no density. I don't want to see my neighbors. I don't, all these things, but make it private, exclusive, gated, no, less impact to the city. What do you think? And the first thing, obviously, and we had done it with the first lot, was secondary water. What are we going to do there? So we went through, similar to every other developer that's been mentioned tonight, we went through all the avenues. I spent a lot of time with Jeff. And I hate, and I was hoping it wouldn't be brought up tonight, I hate to be compared, honestly, to Hamlet Homes. We have water shares. We have money to put infrastructure in for a pump station. That was the intent originally, was to give the water shares from North Ogden Irrigation to hopefully Pineview or Mountain View, put in the infrastructure of the pump system that would actually help service the whole area of this, and then be able to service our lots at a restricted rate. Same thing, because we knew we were pumping it quite a bit up the hill. The elevation change is pretty intense. Then we got stuck in the snag of North Ogden Irrigation realizing that they couldn't move that water above the canal. So we kind of got caught in this month or 2 window where all of a sudden North Ogden was like, hey, we can't transfer any shares. Even if you put infrastructure in for us or give us money, or Pineview, to give, future infrastructure, we can't service you. And we don't know when that will change. We have to look at bylaws, we have to reassess shares, allocations, etc. So I went through that avenue. Then obviously I had heard the discussions about culinary use and how opposed the city was to that. So I kind of kept looking for options on ours, knowing that, in some of these bullet points here, we are zoned HP3, which allows us to have 2 units, maximum density would be 2 units per acre. That gives us potentially 35 lots. And that is a gross number. Like Scott said, that wouldn't, I didn't take out roads, things like that, but potentially up to 35 units. And we have scaled it down to 10 lots. So then I spent a lot of time with your amazing culinary water department here, with Jason. And I said, Jason, the only thing I possibly have in my back pocket is if you need something. And he's like, no, we don't need anything. We're good. And then he kept looking, and ironically, fate, wherever you want to put it, our property runs at the perfect water elevation that one of the future water tanks that the city needs lies right in our property. So if you look at the exhibit, I wish I could point in the bottom corner. Yeah, there you go. There, we have scaled off 1 acre with access for a future water tank that the city needs. The water tank is not a tank that services our project. It's not something that we need to develop, but if it's something that helps us move forward and maybe open this discussion about a little bit of culinary water, we would love to donate, and I'll go through this list in a second, but we would love to donate that land to the city to have their future water tank. And if you go down through the list, I talked through with Jason and some of the public works and Scott and John Call, and kind of put what I'll call a wish list together of what would entice you enough. I mean, land sometimes isn't enough of, you're going to need the land, and the land, is a cost. But, were there some other things that we could do? One, it helps us because we want to limit disturbance to the people that then buy these lots. But we also want to make it really easy that when you guys are ready to construct, that some of the stuff that would be the most nuisance to us would already be taken care of.
Trying to tell us the meeting's over.
I know, I'm sorry, I'm trying to be fast. I'm really trying. So in those negotiations, we talked a little bit about, in lieu of that, the only thing we would want, nothing monetary, is some sort of very reduced. The funny thing is I actually took the sheet out of your packets because I wasn't sure where the conversation was going to go tonight, but I have the Weber Basin calculations because I actually talked to Weber Basin yesterday, giving that 0.38 acre feet allocation and asking for maybe that return in a culinary service. And some of the things that we would do to make that right would be making sure that each lot is stubbed with 2 separate meters. So you have the one allocation of whatever we decide on that acre footage for irrigation is set to 1 meter that can be, taken care of by the culinary water department. It can be shut off, it can be monitored, and it could, not be turned back on if needed. With that, I have thrown around and I'm totally fine with paying double the impact fees for water because we are using another line, another service, all of that. We're asking a lot from you. So those pieces. Then with that, making sure that instead of the 35 homes that could have the impact of, and you've seen my table in the front of the impact difference of our 10 lots versus the 35 lots. So the average home uses 408 gallons a day. And that's from Jason. So I did the math, obviously, that between our lots and the max density, that's about 10,000 gallons a day savings in our density. And then you can see the annual total savings would be, almost 4 million gallons a year. And those numbers are just based on the 10 lots. So I felt that we needed to give you guys some security that, no one's buying a lot that's 12 acres and then they're going to subdivide it. So we would be willing, however Scott or John Call feel comfortable, either a deed or a recorded plat that allows no further subdividing or any other density allowed on this specific project. So trying to tighten as many things as we can so that you feel comfortable that this isn't going further, this isn't getting denser, we're not asking for more, we're not, there's nothing there. And then the last little piece that so we dead ended the road, we looped it. There's no future development on all of this 70 acres. With that, it eliminates a PRV station for the city culinary water, which is your pressure reducing water station that the city then maintains, which is a big ask for them not to have to maintain in the future. We wouldn't be using it, but it would, so that eliminates that. The way we've designed our road, make sure that happens, and the way that we've looped it and dead ended it. So my ask tonight really is, and I know you're in a tough spot, and I know this is on everyone's mind, and I respect the people that came up and talked about it tonight as well. I would just argue that we have something very different, and we can still talk about, I think there's further discussion. We can still talk about what that gallon usage looks like annually. We want to keep the lots native. We don't care if there's a tiny, tiny bit of open space, or green space. We're happy to maneuver all of that. The point of this private subdivision is seclusion, keeping all of the oak brush, keeping all those things that we don't need a lot of water. We really could get away with none, but the city ordinance requires a connection. And it helps a little, like keeping some of the things away from the houses from a fire barrier perspective, like keeping some things moist and wet is a benefit to everyone. But I would really stress that we be looked at a little bit differently in lieu of potentially giving this piece. So I wanted to get your thoughts tonight to see, is this a strong thought, or am I up in the night and we'll just go sit with the rest of the developers and we'll call it good?
Any questions for Geneva
Questions? No.
or
Co-
comments
Comment.
or thoughts?
Yeah, thoughts, something like that. Anyway, so yeah, I think, what you're talking about, native stuff, hey, how do we, again, though, it comes down to enforcement. And John, do we still, it mandates that they have secondary water? Is that's in the current code, and that's something we're trying to figure out, right?
Our ordinance requires secondary water.
Okay, so I mean, if and that's an option, I think, well, I
Or
guess,
I should say it requires water that can be used outdoors. Is probably
yeah,
the better way to
that's
say it.
maybe what I'm going for, is that if that's something that for whatever reason you don't need it, then we take that requirement off. I mean, if that's something that you're willing to do, that, hey, I don't need secondary water or stuff for outside, I would think you would, but
Yeah, I think people were just from a drip perspective, something, and it really, we're in a higher fire zone. To keep what we can around the homes a little bit wet, whether it's a shrub and a tree that requires, we can do all the calculations. Very, very little. We're totally fine with that. It does not need to be turf. It does not need to be, the 4,000 square feet of turf that is,
yeah,
right
because I
there.
think for the most part, I think what we're talking about is, I don't know, we need to be, very, very careful. And I think, what you're talking about is trying to say, hey, we could have had 35 and we're not going to have 35. How do you deed restrict that, and what's the enforcement thereof? That's my biggest worry is when it comes down to it, is how do you enforce what you've decided? Because to be honest, in 4 years or 10 years or whatever, the city council completely changes, and anyway, it could change too. So I think,
And my comment back to that would be more even so is the donation of a need to the city.
right. Yeah.
I think
that's
that's really what we're asking for, is that in that donation and in looking at that, having that reciprocated in a tiny bit of culinary water to be able to move forward with our subdivision and have that secondary requirement met.
I have a question. So this is probably more for John and Dave. Is a water tank part of our long-term planning solution to have? Is this a water tank that replicates something similar to up on Mountain Road then? That large? Okay. I'm sorry, Dave.
You're all right. So everybody can hear. So it creates redundancy in our system, because right now, the way that it works is the way we get water to the cove, for instance, is everything on the west side of the city. So we pump from one tank to another tank, all the way to another tank up at up at the cove. So yes, it's in our long-term planning, because what it does is like I said, it creates that redundancy so that if we ever had a problem on the west side of town where we can't get water to the cove this way, we'd be able to get it on the east side of town and get it up there. So yes.
So what did it cost us to build that water tank?
So the tank itself with the land and everything was,
Without the land, the cost without the cost without the land.
Yeah.
2 million. So even though we're getting a donation, there would be a $2 million investment that would need to be made by the city for this to work.
correct. Correct.
Is that in our
In our
long-term capital budget, John? Something like that, or?
So our impact fee facilities plan does include some more tanks in our system.
So timing wise, you'd have to look at this a little bit then.
We would have to, for our storage, we'd have to decide, again, depending on if it's 9 lots or more, when that tank needs to come online, because the Cove tank is only a 500,000 gallon tank. And I know that but our newest tank is 3 million gallons, 2 million gallons. Shit. So
we're going to build a 3 million.
No, so
it'd be smaller.
This would probably be a 1 million gallon tank.
Okay. So we're talking half the cost, who knows? It's hard to say.
By then, the same cost for a smaller tank.
Yeah, the longer we wait to build, you're right. So it feels like it's in the long-term planning mechanism of things to get a lot.
So yeah, we show that we will add on our current impact facilities plan, it says we'd add our second tank in 2039 and then another tank around 2050 is what it currently shows.
Okay. Thanks, Dave.
So my concern is when Michael Jordan comes in and buys lot 5, 12 acres, because it's going to have to be a Michael Jordan.
I love it. I love it.
What happens? He and anyone as rich as he has all the money in the world, so they could pay for as much culinary water as they want. What happens?
Frankly,
what would
here-
happen there?
Let's take a step back. I just want to be in front of you tonight to see if there is, are you interested in this donation? And then from there, I would love to then meet with you and say, what does that look like? I would say that it, like Jeff reiterated, they get an allotment and they shut it off. It isn't an open thing. They'd have 2 meters. They have a certain allotment every year. And when they use it, it's done. It's shut off. It's its own separate meter. There is no difference, it's not pulling, they can just pay more, because I respect that concern, because that's a different impact than what we would be predicting. So no, whatever security that needs to go, if we need to automate them for the whatever measures to get to making you feel comfortable with that, we're incredibly fine with. Whatever that looks like.
And that's what staff would recommend is if we'd go down, especially if we're talking permanent, that there be a completely separate system, a master meter that what we talked about was, say that these 9 homes, there'd be a master meter out by the gate. And as soon as the subdivision allotment exceeded it, we would turn off the master meter so everyone would lose their water. That would cause them to police each other a little bit and help make sure people aren't putting in landscaping that shouldn't be put in. I
know you don't want to hear this, but as the 9 lots, the 10th lot already has a landscape, we would, because we know that allocation would exist, we would manage what their landscape plan looks like, what it gets approved on that side, and then how it gets allocated from there. So, but and your question is very in depth and I have thoughts on it, but I need to know more. Is this something you guys are willing to look at? Or if I'm falling in the category of the Hamlet Homes and the other people developing around us, it's not worth it for me to give land that disrupts these beautiful homes that are going to go up here. And I'll just go back to the regular site plan and I'll wait in line with the rest of the people. This is kind of my say is there something there? And then I can get with Jason or however it works to figure out what that allotment looks like, what safety measures can be put in place. And is there more of a donation that needs to be made? Is there something that needs to be gifted on behalf of the construction? Or is there a different requirement for the road that he wants?
we're almost at, just over 400,000, is there something more incentivizing for you?
I don't think I'm open to it.
Okay.
I'm just worried about the water. I don't think we should consider culinary water use for the area.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, it seems fantastic, all the things that are being potentially thrown at us.
Hmm.
And we could argue, oh, well, that's going to be fiscally good for the city.
Yeah.
But water is just a resource that there's only so much. And I'm very, very hesitant about using culinary water for this.
Yeah, and the big thing is what's coming, what restrictions are coming, and that's the thing that I worry about the most. That we can give away something that we're like, oops, we shouldn't have done that. I don't disagree with your statements and, what may work and what may not work, and look how much we're saving. But at the same time, I don't think it's something I can give.
Yeah. And I hesitate. I mean, Jason and I talked about maybe a temporary. So, I mean, we have the water. It's not we're not searching for water shares. We have the water. Like, do we give maybe the water shares to the city, or do we wait in lieu until the secondary water is up to that point? My only hesitation in that is, how do we manage that? And secondly, the water tank for the city's benefit is very permanent in those backyards. And if the use on our side is very temporary, I have a hard time selling a lot of that when I don't know what might happen in 5 years. But we've given the land and we've given money and we've done all of this. It's hard to justify the temporary use for that. So, but if that is, I mean, if that's the feel, we'll go back to the original site plan and we'll wait in line.
And
I'm at the place right now that, I just don't, I haven't heard from the city, these emergency needs of having the pumps investment and, the new tank installed emergency right away. This is the first I'm hearing about it. And so I feel like it's hard to just make that decision right now where it doesn't feel like this pressing emergent need yet. So I feel like it's hard to wrap my brain around what we would give up at this point. It just seems like too new to me.
So real quick, should we have Jason come up and speak to us before we make all these decisions?
Well, we're not making any
No,
decisions.
not making any real decisions.
I know.
We're giving a straw poll.
I second that.
I'll let
Eva said not to listen to anyone else but her.
I've spent
That's
a lot of
fair.
time with Jason over the last 3 months. Jason and Dave.
Okay. I'd really like to listen to water professionals.
Good evening. So go ahead and start with your questions, I guess, if you have them.
So what's your sense of this?
I think that to explain, I don't know if John can bring that plot map up again. So the lower green circle there is below that subdivision. So that would be a future tank that we kind of identified at 5280 elevation, which is what it is on the Northview tank, which is on the west side of the city. So if we kind of target that 5280, so somewhere across 5280, whether it's here or further south along the bench, we need a tank at 5280 to match that elevation, right? Because then whichever direction we pump water to, whether it's from a booster station to here, it'd back kind of float between the two tanks across Mountain Road. So that water line would eventually connect to Mountain Road and those two tanks would float, which this Hidden Hills subdivision is completely above that. So this tank would never come into play on their subdivision. It's just was one of the things that came up when we were discussing, it's been a few months ago, but about, hey, we were sitting in a meeting, they were like, hey, the pressure boundary, they were talking about, their engineer drew it above that road that they have with that turnaround. And they says, this is as high as we could go because we'll be out of water pressure on our existing system coming off of Jake Drive. And then that kind of clicked in my head. And I says, well, where's this 5280? Because we kind of counted down and their engineer says it's right here. So that kind of identified that bottom corner. And we says, well, that would fit, a future water tank for the city. And if they're willing to make a donation, that was something that Geneva says, hey, that's
But they would never use that water in this subdivision.
they would never use it in that subdivision. That would be for anything below basically Jordan Park and anything to the south, all the way down to the boundary near the Rice Creek reservoirs. And the top of the 1050 East Road, kind of that area, all in between there and Mountain Road. So that's kind of where that tank site would sit, but it doesn't have any bearing on this subdivision. It's just landed in the elevation we could use. If we look at math and we do, you know, we follow that 0.3 acre feet allocation for water, I mean, we're looking at 123,824 gallons per home that they would be using for whether it was through the Pine View system or the Mountain View system or the North Ogden City delivered water. They would use 123,000 gallons, and basically that's the allotment we would give per lot if that was something you guys decided to move forward with. And that's a total of 1,114,500 gallons a year, which sounds like a lot, but if we were to provide water to 38 homes, you know, we'd be making 16,000 gallons a day. We do that 365 days a year. So in my opinion on this portion of it, it does actually help us with the pump system, because we pump every gallon of water up there, you know, all the way to the top of the Cove Reservoir and then back out the bottom. So if they were to propose a 35 lot subdivision there, we would basically be, if they have irrigation and it was approved, they could do that. And then we would have to support that much burden on the system.
They're saying 8 though.
But if they're saying
They're saying
nine homes, the one already has irrigation, so they would only be using it for 9.
Okay.
So by, you know, there's some ways that Tim and I have talked about using, basically if we had city water that you would decide to use there, we would dump it through an air gap into a vault and they would pressurize their own system. We wouldn't ever have it actually connected as an option. You know, if we did connect it directly, it would have to have some pretty major backflow prevention, cross connection type devices on it. But I kind of like the idea of them just receiving the water in a vault and pressurizing it on their own through their HOA. That would probably be ideal. And then we can just deliver if they build a small wet well tank, if you will, and it holds a few 100,000 gallons, and we just deliver, you know, hey, the first one, the second one, and we tell them you're halfway there, so they can kind of regulate on their own if they'd like. You know, that would be the good thing is we don't have to keep a pipe of water connected to it. We just deliver it and then they hit that number, 1,114,500, and we turn it off. We don't turn it back on until the next year.
Yeah.
So that's an option for
So
this.
operationally, it's not,
In-
there's some
in-
positive elements.
Yeah.
It's still
Yeah.
valuable resource that
Yeah.
we're,
Yeah, and I mean, we don't like the idea of just turning it loose and irrigating turf, because that's just a lot of water on ground that honestly, it's just looking pretty, right? I mean, we do allow, in the drought declaration we did allow trees and plants and gardens to be irrigated with city water when the Pine View restrictions were in place. And so, with the limited amount of turf, I mean, if they put in less than 4,000 square feet, I mean, if you followed that Weaver Basin water-wise, I think you'd probably have a pretty good savings on the city water side of it. Plus, we wouldn't be pumping as much water as often for more homes over there. So. But that's kind of for this one, yeah, that works out. But for Hamlet Homes, maybe not, because maybe it's already established with 38 lots, you know. So, but if the city council decides, hey, that's something that we want to pursue to help them get development done, or if there's a sunset in place, because Jeff with Pine View Water Systems is saying, hey, give me 2 years and we can have it done, or 3 years, then we know there's a sunset on it. We kind of, that's your guys' decision.
Yeah.
So as far as infrastructure and things goes, we have infrastructure in place. We can get water to there.
Yeah.
Obviously that new tank site would be ideal for for us at some point, whether it's a donation of this one or it's somebody else across that same elevation. The thing is the further east and south we go, we typically run into some fault lines that we'd have to navigate, but.
So if they didn't come to us and offer this up, what would what would have been your solution? Just the tank approximately in the same area, right?
At 5280 elevation.
How far to the west would you have considered putting a tank? I guess you got homes directly west of that.
Yeah,
at
you've got,
5280.
yeah, you're into the cove almost immediately. I mean, there's that small piece there. So I mean, even if it was in the next piece over, that parcel would work, or else it would just, anywhere that elevation works is 5280. The further east you go, because you're going downhill, by then you're gonna have to go further east, which puts you up near the power lines or right on that fault line too. So it's actually a pretty good location.
And if this weren't an option and we needed to do a tank in, say, 2039, as John was kind of talking about that capital improvement plan, if the land hadn't developed yet to the west, which is another landowner, I'm sure, can the city can we go to somebody and kind of eminent domain and say, we need I'm just saying we need this land for our water needs. And so you're going to have to let us do that. I'm just kind of trying to think, because
sure. I mean, you'd basically buy 4 homes to do it. And in that area, I don't know that you could afford it, but
It's not very popular
Yeah.
as well.
well, yeah, I understand that, but I'm just saying,
We-
how else do we fill this need in 2039 if we
Yeah,
don't do this?
And if you don't plan for that, a tank on that swath of land somewhere, if you don't put a protection easement in at 5280 across every bit of that fits, then we would end up, we wouldn't have land at some point. Someone's gonna have that built out, to the point that we wouldn't actually have a piece of land to put it on, which is really difficult. The last tank we built, we had to negotiate with the landowner to tear it down, move all the dirt onto his property, build the new tank, and then move it all back and then restore it. And it worked out really well. I mean, the relationship we have with the owner was great. We did everything we could do to make it a good project for him. And we were just lucky that it was, acres and acres of farmland that he was willing to let us use and then put back. So if we don't plan for it, then we won't have it. And then we have to run pumps possibly continuously, on drives based off of a pressure rating that it would just seek a pump pressure to, and it would run all the time. So our power for pumping would be astronomical. Just food for thought,
But
Yeah.
well, I guess the point is that it's either, if we say yes to the tank, then it's a permanent solution, not a temporary. And I think that's where my sticking point is that if everything's piped to and they have the water shares for, I get why, because you don't want to be looking at a ginormous tank for the rest of your life. I mean, so that's going to restrict a lot of those lots to people that can take it. Maybe we paint it green or something. I don't know, but that's, or camouflage, or
We would prefer it buried so you don't see it.
well, there you go.
So
Well, there.
very beautiful underground.
So I mean, if that's the case, I mean, it still is permanent. It's
Yeah.
not going to be temporary. I mean, temporary
Tank
meaning
is permanent. Yeah.
the tank is permanent, but the temporary was what I'm saying is that the use of culinary water would be permanent still, right?
Well,
Is that what you were saying?
John's looked like he has something different to say.
Well, so in this negotiation, and this is what I would, since you're not making a decision tonight, I think that you could work on a temporary solution where the city purchases the land. So if we know we want the land and they're willing to part with the land, we could also purchase it and work a temporary solution out as opposed to a permanent solution where they give us the land. So there's a whole lot in between here. It's the hard part is that you've got this property, the one just west of the tank that you just identified as one of those others that's coming in. The one that's below that piece is coming in. And then the one at the top of 1050, the Knutsons with DR Horton has been talking to the city. And so you've got 4 different developments that are talking about coming into the city right now. And right now, none of them in theory can get secondary water, although maybe the Knutson property can, but they are kind of have all been told you have shares, just not the right shares, or that we can't get that water up the hill. So there's just some nuances that need to be worked through. So, and there's also the option of changing our ordinance to say if you xeriscape completely, zero outdoor water or very minimal, that the ordinance, we could change the ordinance to say subdivisions don't require secondary water anymore. So there are other solutions.
And treat it like the high desert that it is. Yes. So I tend to agree with that, but I think I don't say sticking point, but we just don't know the future. And so I guess to give away something permanently, I think is a bad solution. So, I mean, if
I think John alluded to maybe some annual contract renewals
Yeah.
and things, if that was an issue. So,
Make it temporary. Yeah. For a time frame.
yeah, and if we have a drought declaration, that may be something that says, hey, you guys don't get any water this year for it. If we don't have it, because that's been, 3 or 4 years ago, we had that, and then we had 2 really good winters. Now we're into the same one we're in now. So there's a chance that, if that water's not available.
Yeah, and the 0.3 that people keep pointing out is like a third less of what people are normally accustomed to, I think, from what I was trying to figure out what Mountain View gets and what we were restricted to in those years. And then the 0.3, I was like, man, that's like a third
Yeah.
of what people are normally used to.
Right.
So I think we'd have to, as a city, say, hey, either restricting the amount of grass you have and or changing for what the businesses require for green space or whatever. I think I'm saying that right. So yeah, we need to do something.
I wonder if we're in a different era to think about what John has said is not requiring secondary water at a certain level. Maybe we're just in a different era.
I'm telling him to hit the mic. No, I meant talk into the mic so people can hear you. You'll get used to it.
I'm still learning. I apologize. So
'Cause I can barely hear you. So.
I just wonder if we're in a different era where maybe John's suggestion that maybe we don't require secondary water at a certain elevation, maybe that is a reasonable solution. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, I'm just giving you crap anyway. The new guy, what is it called?
I know.
Initiation. I don't know. But he brought cookies, so I can't think of it.
Okay.
So for tonight on this discussion item, do we need to give a thumbs up or down or?
I think it's a mix because I think I can't say permanent yes. So
we can't
temporary
say
yes,
yes, but can we give staff permission to keep talking and
Yes.
discussing?
Yeah, so the request is what information do you want us to bring back so you can make a decision?
More temporary solutions.
options to have that.
I like
property.
Jeff's solution of give him time.
That's a great solution for now. And the thing is if Jeff needs time, there's no yards going to be built. Even if this is approved, I mean, by the time the infrastructure goes in, the homes are built, the yards are done. I mean, you're at least a year to a year and a half. So maybe he's got it figured out by then.
But
so the
he still
temporary
needs to know whether we're giving.
But the temporary agreement would be, hey, if Jeff's gonna, well, we would know in a few weeks, it sounds like, if I'm not putting words in Jeff's mouth, but he said that. Maybe that would be something he could come back and give you, but the temporary agreement might be something that you could work out and maybe a contract, but that's just my suggestion.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of the landscaping they don't even have, this road's not here. So 6 months to do the road, 18 months to build the size of house, right? Which haven't been designed yet. So you may be looking at 2 to 3 years before anyone actually needs water, except for the one home that already has an agreement with Mountain View, right? We're only talking about the 9 that haven't been subdivided yet.
It seems complex, and I guess at the beginning of this discussion, I kind of felt like I took a hardline stance, but I guess it doesn't hurt to explore what the options are. If I'm reading you correct, it sounds like you're, as the water professional for the city, you're reasonably in favor of doing this because of the availability to have the tank there. I guess.
That helps. I mean, that's a great, you know, asset to have there. And it fits kind of, there's a natural channel that follows out of there. It's the drainage channel. Is that mountain water? Is it? So that's their spring water. But so from where that tank site is, it kind of just naturally, there's a really good way to keep that maintained as a utility easement too. So we could come out of the tank. It seems like a good option, you know, without impacting a lot of a future subdivision. Until we can get into the road, you know, at the next point. So it does seem like a really good location. I like the idea of not providing water to 38 homes, you know, or whatever it's zoned, could have 35 homes, you know. To me, that's a savings to everyone. We don't run energy for pumps. We don't wear out pumps and have to replace them sooner. So there's some good things to come that come from that. And it kind of that whole corner of development finishes up there. There's not really anything to come into it from the bottom at that point.
Okay, so give a thumbs up or down to have John and Jason keep
Well,
talking.
there's no real final decision being made tonight, and we're just giving the thumbs up to keep exploring.
Correct.
And then it might, however long it takes for you guys to come back with the next proposal, you will. I mean, maybe Pineview has figured things out within 6 months and the whole situation will look completely different.
Right.
So
And
I'm
that might
okay
be
with
the-
exploring.
And I think Tim, our new engineer, Tim's got some good points he'd like to, you know, include in that when we bring that back on the next round.
Okay.
So,
I just will bring up the point.
Your microphone's not working. No.
You want mine?
Is that one working now or not? No, they're all broken.
It's because it's 9 o'clock and we're supposed to be done.
Oh, now I could. Oh, he's been turning me off this whole night.
Sabotaging you.
I lost my train of thought a little bit, but I think seems like a really complex thing to try to descript every line item to make this possible. And this is just one of many developments that would come in, and this would be one thing after another. And I just feel like I don't want to reinvent the wheel, and there's got to be I wish that we could just leave it in the hands of all the experts and all of you just work it out together. But I'm not going to be closed-minded, but I think you'd have to come out pretty strong to be persuasive to us.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Keep working on it.
Did you get what you need, John?
Yes.
Okay.
He just wants to get out. I'm pushing this, as you can see. All right, moving on. We're on now to number 8, public comments. Or wait. Oh, they left. Somebody they wanted to give a public comment, but they left. So back to public comments. Now's your chance to come back to the microphone. You have 5 minutes or less. Give your public comments on anything that was discussed tonight or anything pertaining to our city, and give your name and whether you're a resident in North Ogden. And Brenda wants to be first.
Want to be before this conversation gets to the other stuff. Brenda Ashdown, I live in North Ogden. It's still cold in here, about 7:30. I think the air conditioner turned on. I got my jacket. I got a blanket. Warm us up or bring us blankets for all of us. Maybe electric blankets or something. It's very cold in here. My opinion on using culinary water for yards is absolutely not. I think if you do this, you are setting a precedent. If there's a problem up that high with getting secondary water, and that's where our development is going up that high, this is not going to be the only subdivision that's going to come and ask for it. I think it makes no difference to me. I don't have a horse in the race. I don't use your water, but I just don't think it's a good idea. Next question, why do we have zones if you're going to change them for each developer? I have seen this year after year after year. We have a developer come in, it's zoned, they want to change the zone, they want to make exceptions to the zone. And what's the point of having the zones? And then you've got people who bought a house in a certain zone, kind of expecting that that's what their neighbors are going to be. And then you're allowing to come in with half of what they have. Doesn't seem quite fair to me. Narrow streets, HOA, why do these subdivisions, do they have to be HOA, or that's just what developers and builders are wanting is HOA? Do they have to be HOA?
We can answer your question. So we try to take the questions and then we'll try and answer them
Oh,
all
okay.
at the end. So I'm
Okay.
writing them down though.
Because if you look at Prominence Point, which is the one I'm most familiar with, I have friends that live in a different one and sister that lives in a different one. But the narrow streets with allowed parking, when you have, even though they do their own snow plowing, there's no place for the plow. There's no place for the snow. I have visited these where they have street parking, they've plowed. I mean, how do these people who park on the streets even get out after it snowed? Luckily or not, this year we didn't have that. One thing I'd like to remind you of also goes back to Prominence Points. When the development plan was made with the city, there was a lot of things said across this microphone that was not added into the development plan. So when people tried to say, well, they said they were going to do this, but because it wasn't in the development plan, the city could not hold them to it. Please make sure you have a very detailed development plan. Shaw Property on Pleasant View Drive, Mr. Hanson as the developer, I think, I'm not sure what he was. When they first started with that, it was agreed that they would do small houses, smaller houses. There'd be some greenery there. And he came and said he could not find a builder that would build those small houses. So then it had to be changed to townhomes. There's nothing done there yet. So if he could not get a developer or a builder to do small houses, are these guys going to be able to get a developer to do these smaller houses? And I understand part of the point of having smaller affordable homes, but I'm on the other end of it. Yeah, I want a smaller affordable home, but I don't want stairs. You know, then that becomes an affordability, an attainability issue for me. I think that's everything. Thank you.
Hi, me again, Kate Prebison, North Ogden resident. Thanks for listening and hearing our concerns. I know it's been a long night. Some thoughts I'm sitting with. It seems to me developers are the ones helping set the price and prevent affordable housing. They are overpaying for property, which is the base cost and helps establish the price point of the home. So when developers say an R18 doesn't work with this property, is it because the cost he paid for the land and the profit he doesn't want to compromise on? If cities bow to developer demands, it feels like we will be in a never-ending cycle as they will continue to pay these higher prices for land, creating a higher base cost for the end product. I agree affordable housing is needed, but I don't think the Atkinson Pauling property is the right place, and I don't know that this proposal is the right way to do it. An analogy my neighbor made was just because a house needs a bathtub doesn't mean you have to put it in the kitchen. Atkinson Pauling, in my opinion, is not the place that needs to compromise, and I honestly don't see it moving the needle to meet potential state demands in the future. As proposed, these homes would be a hard sell to future buyers. I did a quick check on Zillow for North Ogden, and the homes that are between 1,700 to 2,200 square foot have a price point between $410,000 to $590,000, and not a single one is under an R18. Smaller, more affordable homes that are true starter homes are 900 to 1,400 square foot size. And those prices would probably get you closer to that $400,000 with nice amenities, parks, and distance between neighbors. I'd imagine they would sell quickly. Thank you.
I'm John Tully from North Ogden. Just a few comments. The developer said that he's just trying to give 67 new families the same opportunity I had. Well, it's true. I bought my home 6 years ago for about $400,000. But the thing is, when I bought my home, it was R18 and it was in a neighborhood that was all 1 or 1/8. He's asking us to let 67 new families come in at twice the density, at least twice the density of all the surrounding homes. I didn't ask anybody to change what they had purchased. I bought a piece of property consistent with the surrounding home properties. The developer said that the side yard setback for his development, I think he said, is 5 feet. R15 is 7 feet. Quail Ponds was 5 feet. R18 is 8 feet. He says, what's the difference? A couple of feet. But if you look at the R18, they do allow an 8-foot side yard setback for one home, but the spacing, minimum spacing, is 18 feet. So if you have a home with 8 feet, the other one's got to have 10. His development is 10 feet. Boom, 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 boom. 2 stories, 10 foot, consistent 10 foot spacing. So it's good for us to work together to get all these issues on the table. We're hearing part of the story from all of us, probably only part of the story from me as well. Let's see. He said, most people want their basements in the ground. I love my basement half out of the ground. The light coming in my back room, because my windows are all above the ground. I'm glad that when Ward Farms put 3 feet of rock under my home and pushed it up so I could have more light. So there's all kinds of things that are being thrown out here that are not quite true. And it's for, you have the very difficult task to sort through all of this. And I appreciate your willingness to do that. Other people need to be involved, like Kate mentioned. Realtors need to be involved. The developer's throwing out this R18 cost at $700,000. I don't know that that's true, whether that has really required $700,000. And the roads, Mindy had all kinds of road plans. Maybe if you don't have to build so many roads and you have 3 or 4 homes sharing the cost of the roads, it's not as expensive as it seems. I think there's some real work that could be done here to look for something a little lower density than R15. Thank you.
Brent Call, North Ogden resident. A lot of the discussion about the Atkinson property has centered around this affordability housing question. And just to kind of address, I think, some of the questions or comments that you had, Councilmember Pulver and also Councilmember Watson, I did a little Google searching as well. And the affordability housing issue, like I mentioned in my opening comments, is not just a city issue. It's a community issue. We are part of a bigger community. Basically the Ogden area, North Ogden being a bedroom community to North Ogden. Well, Weber County, and this includes the valley with extremely high property values, is at an average of $451,000 home price. So we kind of theoretically identified affordability as $450,000. Well, Weber County's already there. We're already there. Yeah, North Ogden is about 520,000 on average. The affordability issue is really a Salt Lake and Utah County issue. Average home prices in Salt Lake are 561,000. Average home prices in Utah Valley are 536,000. So the governor again is trying to force a statewide problem into communities that it's really not an issue. And just kind of anecdotally, I have 3 grown children, all 3 of which have gone through this housing boom as first-time home buyers. One kind of at the start, one in the middle, and then one just last year. All 3 of them have navigated it in Weber County by buying homes that are in this affordability range, actually lower than these numbers, and have now moved up. 2 of them have moved up into higher range prices. The one that just bought last year is still obviously early in that process. So again, you know, we're talking about trying to shoehorn in something into our community on what's a broad statewide problem where it doesn't really fit into our community. North Ogden as a bedroom community is obviously, because we're, you know, starting to move up the hill, a more desirable community than some of the other areas in Weber County. So obviously our home prices on an average should be higher. And that's the kind of atmosphere we want to maintain. We have a good affordability housing plan, as Scott Hess has already identified, one that the state has accepted, and we don't need to shoehorn these things in to keep that in line with the state. The developer said, you know, this creates an opportunity for 67 families to get into this affordability housing number. Well, again, I did a AI Google search and said, well, how many homes are available in North Ogden today under $450,000? 65 to 85 homes, excuse me, are available today in that price range. So those 67 families that he's talking about already have the opportunity to have affordable housing in North Ogden, if that's really where they want to live. Basements, you know, he said, we can't build basements. Okay. On 850 East, 2100 North, there's a subdivision that is a R1 12.5. I think it's Coldwater Meadows, I believe is the name on it. The homes in there are almost all without basements. Those homes sold like hotcakes. There are a lot of people that want a single level slab on grade home. The demographics of the area were aging. A lot of people still want single family homes. So I think that's a straw man argument.
You're over 5 minutes.
All right. Hey, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Late went to sleep there, sitting there. Kent Williams, North Ogden resident. I'm a builder, developer, and a real estate agent for many, many years. And some of the concerns I have with what's being said is we're trying to get affordable housing, but one of the arguments is we're going to do a PUD. Well, if the home was at 400,000 and you put a PUD on there, now you're at 500,000 realistically. So you really, what does that serve anybody? And you're passing the cost, the developer is passing on to the homeowner. The problem I have with that too is Well, it's saving the city money, but you're not giving those folks a discount on their taxes. They're paying just as much money as you and I are for the same services and everything else. So I don't see how this benefits a homeowner. In fact, it hurts them if they've got to pay all these additional fees on top of what they're already paying. They're trying to get into a home. They're already coming up with a huge down payment, huge monthly payments. They've got to have big incomes. I just don't see how we can keep sticking it to the homeowners because the developer doesn't want to step up and put a full street in or things like that makes it a normal, good place to live. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Phil Swanson, North Ogden resident. As far as the Atkinson Poly, I agree with the Planning Commission. Watched that meeting. It was well reasoned, well thought out, well debated. I think the R18 would be an appropriate zone for that. That's all I have to say on that. As far as the water goes, are we now in an auction for North Ogden's culinary water to the highest bidder? I mean, if we offer a tank and we offer some other infrastructure that frankly we can't drink, but if we offer it high enough that you'll give up our culinary water for irrigation purposes, it's a concern if that's where things are going. John mentioned that we have this one offer and granted, smart on the developer to offer some infrastructure that we need and that is costly for us to apply. But John mentioned that there's 3, maybe 4 other developers getting ready to make application in that same area. So a month or 2 ago, we had one developer stick their nose under the tent of culinary water for irrigation purposes. A month or 2 later, we have a second developer, and now we've got 3 or 4 more in that same area that are going to be in the same ball of wax. So before we know it, we're going to have half a dozen developers wanting some kind of agreement to use culinary water for irrigation purposes. Just some thoughts that I had. One, we can't drink donated infrastructure as nice as it is. Are we starting an auction for the city's culinary water? It sure feels that way. Temporary is risky. Permanent is ludicrous. There's just no way that we should ever allow a permanent use of culinary water for irrigation purposes. I don't think we should ever use it for a temporary purpose because the water's available. It's just not easy to get there. The city is suit averse. Councilmember Dowpaz, you mentioned what if Michael Jordan builds a house up there, or we have somebody else that builds a house with that kind of money, and we go to turn off their water. You think the city's going to fight that lawsuit, or are we going to turn the water back on? I think we'll just turn the water back on is what'll happen. And that'll set a precedent for everybody else. In the circumstance where there are limitations placed, there was talk tonight about a 2-pipe system where one pipe is the drinking and flushing water, one pipe is culinary water, but it's used for irrigation that we could turn off separately when you've reached your allotment. Who's going to enforce that? We can't enforce just the most basic things here in the city as it is. How are we going to add to our water department, to code enforcement, whoever it happens to be? There's a restriction on xeriscaping or xeroscaping, depending on what it is. Who's going to enforce that? Once a homeowner's moved in and they've built a 15,000 square foot house on 4 or 5 acres and it's a beautiful home and they decide, I'm putting grass in. Everybody remember the drought that they had in LA here about 5 or 6 years ago? Where water restrictions were, basically you could not water outside at all. Any of you remember the news reports about Beverly Hills? Yeah, there wasn't a bush that died in Beverly Hills. There wasn't any grass that went brown in Beverly Hills because the people with money were willing to pay the fine to have their green grass. If we're using culinary water for secondary irrigation and you have wealthy enough people, the fine isn't going to matter. Right? So anyway, those are my concerns. And then finally, this is just kind of a ha-ha, but it has some seriousness to it. There was a song back in the 70s that I grew up listening to called the Smuggler's Blues. Everybody remember that? Smuggler's Blues.
Was that on Miami Vice?
Well, yeah, it was on a couple of them. But there's a line in there that I think applies to being enticed with financial incentives to give up culinary water for irrigation. And that line just goes like this: the lure of easy money has a very strong appeal. Be careful. I'm grateful that you're having the conversation. I'm grateful that you're willing to work with developers, whether it's on the density or whether it's on water needs. But please be very, very, very careful with our most precious resource. Thank you.
Everybody's slate's falling asleep. Just a couple things. I'll be real quick. As far as
Your
the
name
affordable
again?
housing goes, I'm Kevin Bott from North Ogden. It's great to have a $450,000, $500,000 affordable house, but then you apply a $250 HOA fee to it. I'd take that money and go buy me a $600,000 or $700,000 home, because the HOA fee is just throwaway money. You might as well just be renting. As far as the road goes, that's great that they want to put a road in and pay for their road. But what about 925 that the city owns on both sides? It's going to get more impact from all the cars that are driving on it. So it's going to wear our road out quicker. Are they going to come in and help you pay for your road? I don't think so. If you're talking about 60 something houses, everybody nowadays has a couple cars. So times that by 2, you've got quite a few cars. The smaller homes, they're talking about the 20-foot setback. You go look at a crew cab pickup truck long bed, it's over 20 feet long. So they're going to pull up next to their garage. The bed's going to be sticking out past the driveway. And you've got 5 feet between each one of the houses. Everybody nowadays has toys that they haul around. They've got to have RV parking. An RV is not going to fit in a 5-foot area. You can go down to Quail Pond and take a look, drive through there. The people all park their RVs out on the street. And most of those trailers are 10 or 12 feet wide. So if you've got one side of the street that's for parking, guess where the people's trailers and all their toys are going to be parked at, because they can't park them alongside of their house. So that's just a couple things that I was thinking about. And as far as like the fire goes, if you've got somebody with a big trailer sitting out in the middle of the road, you've got a fire down there, the fire engine can barely get by. It's not going to be pretty. I've been on some small roads down kind of by, it's in the Layton area where they had some smaller roads like that. With one car parked on the street, you could barely get by. I didn't get out and measure it, so I don't know exactly how wide it is. I just know that it wouldn't really work for this instance. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Kevin Burns, North Ogden. I'd like to encourage you on that Atkinson Poly project. I'd like to encourage you to not go any denser than the R18. A lot of discussion tonight. I actually heard the developer say no roads is better. So I agree. Just couldn't agree with that guy more. No roads is better. Talked a lot of, and it's been commented on a couple of times. The developer wants us to believe that he's here working for 67 families to move into our city. Make no mistake, he's not working for 67 families. He's working for a bank account. He's a developer. His only purpose in life is to make money. And that's his job. I get it, but it's real disingenuous to make us believe or try to get us to believe that he's trying to help 67 families. Because we got to hear all the good trigger words tonight. Affordability. We're going to provide housing for first responders and teachers, pulling at all the feelings. Ignore it. Ignore it and do what's right for those of us that are living here and dealing with the development. We saw, it was really cool. We heard one developer tell us, we want to have so few houses that you don't get to see your neighbors. That was pretty cool. And we've got another one that wants us to be able to high five our neighbors off of our decks. So please steer away from the R15. R18 is dense enough, and appreciate your time. Thank you.
Call the ball.
Yep, go ahead. You got 5 minutes.
Okay, yeah, no, I'll take less. So Derek Cherry, Kaysville. I mean, a lot of opinions. I get it. I mean, I just want to address some of the facts. It was said that the R18 has, that I said the R18 only had 8-foot side setbacks, but had to be a combined with no less than 18. That is true. Then you go to the next line, exception, where there's an attached garage with the required number of parking spaces. Both side yards may be 8 feet. So that's how I got to the 8 feet on both sides. Just want to correct. And I guess I apologize. I said no roads. Apologize for that. Roads are good. I like roads. And I'll just close with the last number I heard in terms of the housing shortage is 100,000 units is what we're short. And that's because of, if we continue to do what we do, that number will stay the same. If we want to do something different, we can help that number. I guess that's it. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. We'll see you on the 24th.
Happy birthday.
All right, we'll go ahead and close public comments. Moving on to mayor, council, staff comments. We'll start with staff. Ryan, you want to keep us here longer? Okay. Peter, Scott, Dave, Don.
Just thank you, council, for dealing with some rough issues. Welcome to the new year.
Foreshadowing.
This is, well, you're a complete council, and sometimes we have tough discussions. So thank you for your effort.
Council, does anyone have anything they need to bring up?
No. There's lots of stuff I want to.
Nope. Be looking for a motion to oh wait, hold on. I got some things. Brenda, I said I'd answer your questions. The city doesn't change zones for developers, so with an annexation, there is no zone currently on that land. So the developers are asking for a zone. We have the decision whether we want to grant it or what zone we'll grant. Narrow streets in the HOA, city doesn't accept narrow streets, so that's why you have to have an HOA. Narrower streets are cheaper to build than normal streets. Oh, and I just lost my notes. Hold on. And then I agree, we need a very detailed development plan. Did I answer all of, or the majority of them? Okay. And then you already answered, you were proposing 7-foot side setbacks, not 5 feet. It is 7 feet, so it'd be 14 feet between residences, not 10. Now I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn unless anyone else has questions they need to answer. Motion.